Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, and so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show. Booyah!
Hey, the gang's all here!
Look at that!
The gang is all here.
I haven't seen you guys in person in forever.
The band's back together.
Yeah.
The band is back. We have not been together for about 2 weeks, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
So
It's been
Adam,
longer than that.
Adam, G. Bush,
Yeah.
and myself, and
Right.
Jason's back in studio.
Yeah.
It feels natural again, doesn't it?
It
feels
does.
normal.
Band
It
is
feels
back
great.
together. Well, listen,
We're
this-
excited about fake football.
Yes, we are.
Wait a minute.
excited.
Are you excited about fake football?
No!
Definitely.
No, people go nuts. It's fake. It's preseason. This is the team that deserves our attention. I get it. We got all the nudnicks and the nerds on Twitter saying, Mike, the top 5 trending topics on Twitter today are Baker Mayfield going to, who gives a rat's ass that Baker Mayfield played a preseason game for Carolina? The Guardians are in first place by 2.5 games, and you people should be showing up to the game. What's the matter with you?
You're seeing red.
Oh, God.
Bull's hot.
G's texting me, well, you know people care about football more. I know it.
Bull, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you, but
know
here's
it
what I've
was.
decided.
Yeah.
You can take a horse to water, but you can't make them
drown their head in it.
We can hold their head in the trough.
Right.
Here's the sad reality.
Yeah.
And folks, I hope I don't piss anybody off.
Yeah.
Cleveland's not a baseball town.
It's definitely not.
Period. End of discussion.
I know that.
We
It's
used
just
to
frustrating.
be, but we're no longer a baseball town.
Yeah.
And to your point this morning, as
Yeah.
I'm reading it, you're telling us all stuff that I know.
Yeah.
And I know I know what the trending topics are.
Yeah.
I know that this market cares about football. 365. Even this is proof.
Yeah.
They care more about fake football than they do about playoff
That's
chase
right.
baseball.
Yes.
So
Baker
Cleveland is
Mayfield
officially
Baker's preseason game trending more than the Guardians.
Unreal.
Who had a big weekend series
they're
against the
2.5
Blue Jays.
games in front of the Twins
Exactly.
and Red Sox.
Jason, for the Indians, or excuse me, the Indians, Guardians, we're supposed to have a kiddie pool. For the Guardians to be relevant, you almost have to be in the ALCS. That's when people will start tuning in, looking around.
I think
saying,
they'll
okay,
care when even if it's a wild card game, they'll get the fever for a day.
They'll
Yeah.
sell it out an hour before the game.
Yeah.
They'll sell the last couple
Yeah.
of tickets.
But this
Right.
notion that, and I always used to argue when I was working at ESPN, I used to tell everybody, they'd say Cleveland's not a baseball town. I'm like, you're full of, you know what?
Yeah.
Cleveland is a baseball town. Cleveland used to be a baseball town.
Yeah.
After living here for 3 years now and being able to feel the pulse every day,
Yeah.
we're
It's
not.
not. No,
and
it's
that
sad.
breaks my heart
Yeah.
more than anything.
Yeah.
Because
You love baseball.
I'm
I
a
love
Steve
baseball.
head, yeah.
Jason loves
we
baseball.
love the game,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the city is not into this.
No,
For
no.
some reason.
I think
And
you
this
can
is a
develop
fun
it.
team.
I
They're
know.
overachieving. It's amazing.
I
We
think
got to
you have
turn
to develop those
turn the
guys.
page though immediately, or we're going to lose viewers.
Yeah.
That's what the metrics
Sad
tell
but
us.
true. Come on, people. Straighten
So
yourselves out.
we
Wait, can I
can't.
ask one question about
Sure.
the Guardians-Indians dilemma? If they had more big-name players, like when they had
No.
guys like Hafner, did that make any difference? Is it the
No.
lack of star power?
I think
lead
that's
to
an
the lack
excuse
of
people
interest?
use.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's
Yeah.
an excuse.
To me, you got to develop it. This is a grassroots effort. If you want people,
They have.
But you got to start young. You got to get people to be like, hey, we need to get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds in here. We need to. Listen, if the Guardians would sponsor a whole league, they're like, listen, we're going to sponsor a whole league.
But they've
of
done
children.
that. They go into the inner city.
They're doing
and
it right now.
And they do
Yeah.
these leagues.
And they're having
And-
success with that,
And
too.
maybe
by the
that'll
way.
make a difference down the line. We'll see.
It'll come, but it
You know
has to
what?
be grassroots.
G. Bush, I interviewed the Cleveland junior teams,
Yeah.
the Guardians sponsor. I went over there and did a story a couple of weeks ago before they were going to the regionals. They made it to the Nationals in Atlanta. I interviewed their star player. Hell of a player.
Yeah.
Latin kid, great arm. He was playing catcher when I was there, and I was just looking at him as a catcher. And I told their coach, I go, there's your standout, isn't it? He said, yeah, but he's a better pitcher and shortstop. I mean, he's just that kid. You can plug him in anywhere.
Right.
I'm telling, snap throws from his knees to both third and first, out of his hand in no time and right on the bag. So I'm interviewing him after the practice. And I said, you big fan? No. I love to play it.
Yeah.
And I go, do you watch it? He's like, no.
Yeah.
I go, could you name stars right now? Jose Ramirez.
Yeah.
I go, do you go to games? Do you watch games? No.
Yeah.
And that's the generation that we're in.
We talked about this earlier. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but the whole YouTube and they don't have to watch a game.
No,
they just
they
pull up the
don't.
clips on
Right.
YouTube and watch the
Right.
highlights.
And even if they don't want to go to YouTube, I know how I consume games now on days that I'm always watching. If I'm home in the evening, it's always on in my house. Always.
Me too.
But on the weekends when I'm out and I'm never home, I get updates on my phone at every score change.
Right.
So that's often how I'm following the games on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
And I have a real fear for the sport moving forward. The fans are dying.
Oh, yeah.
The older ones,
They're older.
The older ones are the only ones that consider themselves diehards. We talked 5 minutes about them. We got to change the
We'll
topic.
get to it later, but last thing has to do with the Guardians. Have you guys seen this? Have you guys watched any of the Little League World Series at all?
Yes.
I saw.
There's one kid, I can't remember what team, I think it's Wyoming, some flyover state out west. The kid was instead of wearing batting gloves, he was wearing like the gloves you'd wear working on a farm.
Wow.
He had a big kid. He had a jack wearing those. It was so funny.
Hey, you use what you have, I guess.
Oh, man.
All right, let's talk about fake football.
Yes.
Shall we have
Fake
to talk
football,
about the Browns. And
baby.
guys, I know that it's a preseason game, and I know he's got a lot going on in his life, but I want your immediate reaction to what you saw from Watson. Were you concerned? Do you dismiss all of it? Bull, you can start.
I mean, he played crappy, and they played crappy when he was out there. But it's 5 throws. I can't get carried away. Somebody said, "Oh, if it was Baker, you would have ripped him." Listen, I've ripped Baker for a million things, but I wouldn't rip him for throwing 5 passes and 4 incomplete in the preseason.
Right.
My theory on the preseason has always been, and I can't understand why people make more of it than it is, the preseason is part of the process of getting ready. It's important to the team. There's things they learn about routine and stuff like that. It's important to young players battling for roster spots. But for a guy who's going to be the starting quarterback eventually for this team, I am not getting worked up about 5 passes.
Right.
Would I have loved to see him throw a 40-yard touchdown? Sure, we could have all gotten excited about that. But even if that happened, that doesn't really mean anything either. Yeah. That's my reaction
Jay?
to it.
I think I said when I was in on Thursday, he's going to go 2 of 6 for 16 yards. I wasn't far off.
No.
Remember that? I was pretty close.
You overrated
Really close. That was pretty spot on.
If Schwartz could have caught one of them,
Yeah, that's true.
He would have
probably
been 2. He would have been 2 of 5 for 16 yards.
right.
So I'm not surprised. Listen, he's missed a ton of time.
Yeah.
Right? We knew it's a 19-month layoff. This is probably the only time you're going to see him for another 12 months. I think that's why they try to crowbar him out there and get him these amount of snaps before a decision comes down. You can't read anything into it. It's a first preseason game. It is what it is. They look terrible. He looked rusty. Okay, so you punt and you move on. I wouldn't make too big of a deal about it.
Yeah, listen, they did what they needed to do to get him together on his mental aspect. To me, this was seeing for the first time for a player that has been traditionally liked around the league, a player that was beloved in Houston. Now, a couple of years, almost 2 years later, guess what? Get used to those boos.
Oh, yeah.
Get used to people being in your ear. Get used to people bearing down on you. And you got to get used to, for a certain period of time, being a bad guy. And the whole team needed to understand that and to hear it.
Not for a period of time. I think
For a long time.
Yeah,
he's going to hear those. When he goes to opposing stadiums, he's going to see signs and he's going to hear the chants
For the rest of his
for the rest of his career.
Now,
If Berger got it,
if he can win some championships, it'll die down a little bit. But what they wanted to do, and I thought they did a good job of it, they wanted to shock their body. They wanted to shock them into understanding this is your new reality. It's no more lovable losers. The Browns are going to be public enemy number 1 in every single stadium.
Yeah, that's definitely 1,000% correct. Here's my takeaway. I thought it was interesting that on his very first pass was a rollout to the left that looked Baker-esque.
Baker.
And I thought, okay, that's not by accident.
Yeah.
They're going to show right away that our guy can do that too. Not surprised that he sailed at 10 yards over Schwartz's head. Anybody that's played pro sports, professional, competitive sports at any level, he had the adrenaline of 20 months coursing through his veins. It was easy to predict that his first pass was going to be overthrown. No matter how much you try to think about that, he's made a million passes in practice. I get it. I think physically, he looked rattled to me. He looked nervous. I can understand that. Everything he's been through, and now he's finally getting back to what he loves to do most. I expected him to look nervous. He got his feet tangled up coming under center on one of the plays. That's not who we're getting. That's not who this guy is.
Right.
I watched it. I consumed it. I immediately forgot about all of it. It means nothing to me, just as Dobbs' performance meant very
Nothing.
little to me,
Nothing.
too.
I don't care what he did. I
No.
don't care what Rosen did. I don't want to see them taking a
It was
snap.
good that he was serviceable.
Yeah,
Dobbs
fine.
is a serviceable guy.
Yeah.
But everybody that was getting all excited about his numbers and, hey, what do we have? What we have here is what we thought we had here. He was doing it against guys that will be selling insurance in a couple
Right.
of weeks.
He's
So I'm
doing
not
it
going to
against-
get too excited about that.
Against third stringers on the team that was the worst team in football last year.
Yeah, and a lot of
So-
those guys aren't going to be around
Exactly.
in a couple of weeks. So I'm happy for him. I think we talked about this on Friday's show. You would much rather your guy do well
Sure.
in preseason games,
Yeah.
but you just can't take too much out of any of it.
We can get more into this later, but you made a point last week when I was on about I wouldn't play him, the injury risk. What are you
Right.
trying to? It wasn't that he got hurt. It was disastrous, though.
Yeah.
Losing Nick Harris.
Well, let's talk about Nick Harris.
That was, to me, that's disastrous that you lose your starting center. The only reason he's out there is because of Deshaun. That's it.
Yeah.
They're playing the first string starters. They don't do that in the first preseason
Well,
game.
we saw that last year with Stefanski didn't use any.
That's exactly. The only
In the
reason he's
preseason.
out there is because of Deshaun, because you're trying to protect
Right.
Deshaun. And then to lose your center on the second snap turned the whole thing into a disaster.
Yeah.
Because the whole
you had a pit in your gut the whole rest of the night.
Yeah, and you knew. You just
You
knew.
know, the
He's
player
done.
reaction always tells you. When they're going to their head,
Yeah.
they know what it is.
Right.
They've been injured before. They've had tweaks. You know when you tear your ACL. Am I right, G. Bush?
Yes, you do.
You know the second it happens
Yep.
because you almost go into shock.
Well, when I saw
The
him,
pain is so bad, you almost go into shock.
he had a bull rush. He was trying to guy bull rush him. He's trying to reset his, hunker down, put his head out of the block. And as soon as he went to that back leg, that post leg, it was just like, oh, that it gave out. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say this, though. I'm not going to blame Stefanski. I'm not going to blame the whole
No.
idea that you're playing Deshaun in the first place. Injuries happen.
That's right. He needed
It could
to
have
play.
happened in practice. You oftentimes, with the ACL, usually there is a traumatic play. There's one play. But I remember my surgeon telling me when I retore it, and I said, was this destined to happen? He said, oftentimes, believe it or not, your genetic makeup leaves you sometimes predisposed to that injury. Is it one of those things where it's 99% there and one more play is going to put it over? Yeah, I've seen that. Oftentimes it's not. In football, it's that one twerk,
Twist.
that your body weight gets caught in the wrong place, your foot gets stuck in the dirt,
Yeah.
and you twist. But it could have happened the first game of the regular season. It could have happened on yesterday's practice session. These things happen.
Right.
And you just can't start pointing fingers. This wouldn't have happened if.
I agree.
We don't
I
know.
think it's ridiculous to blame Stefanski. Watson needed some reps. The starting offensive line needed to be out there, and working with the center. So I don't have any problem with that.
Have they called J.C. Treader yet?
Well, these guys are saying, I know G said he was at camp the other day and he heard that,
Yeah,
some rumblings.
I mean,
I
I
don't understand. I mean, Joe Bitonio, do we have the clip or the graphic here of what Joel Bitonio said yesterday? I know we were going to get to it later, but since we went down this road anyway, Bitonio basically insinuated that nobody's signing Treader because he's the president of the NFL Players Association.
I was surprised you went there. I was really
But
surprised.
isn't it
that-
obvious?
Really surprised he went there.
Isn't that obvious,
Yeah,
though?
but they don't ever acknowledge the obvious.
No.
All right, fair. That's true.
It's like an owner saying we might be colluding.
Yeah, and it's true because Bitonio's never a guy that says anything controversial.
No.
But it's obvious. The guy was still one of the best centers in the league last year. At worst, he's a top 10 center. And it's ridiculous. This Ethan Pocic, or however the hell you say his name,
Right.
I know he started games for Seattle, but he's not very good.
He's kind of a bust. He was a second-round pick of the
yeah,
Seahawks.
when a team gives up on a high draft pick like that,
Second-round pick?
something
Yeah.
is wrong with them.
J.C. Treader was much better than this guy. I don't understand.
I think what J.C. Treader is, J.C. wasn't able to practice as much as he would. Basically, he was on the list where it's like, hey, give us what you can as long as you can make it by walkthroughs, and you'll be good. You could be on the field. But sometimes other players are like, look, man, he's not here. We got to go through these grueling practices. We got to still do those
And
things.
that's a
he's
unit that has to
playing.
work together.
And the unit has to work
I
together.
don't buy that there was an offensive lineman that was unhappy that Treader was missing some practice. And I would take Treader with no practice over this guy
I
with
would
everyday
too.
practice.
Don't underestimate the fact that J.C. Treader basically brought down the entire OTA program of the Cleveland Browns last year.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate
There's
that.
something to be said for that for sure.
That absolutely, as the role of union president, I had other linemen saying, whatever JC tells us, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And he basically brought down the entire OTA program. And that, I'm sure, is lingering with the franchise.
I think you're right.
That's being
And
short-sighted
and maybe
and
other
stupid,
teams
though.
as
The
well.
guy helps you win.
Look, at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
about wins. If
Yeah.
you're going to bring in a guy with baggage and
Yeah.
court cases hanging over his head,
Yeah.
if you've got a guy that is very strong at a position that you are now extremely weak,
Yeah.
if the fan base is going to start looking at them side-eyed
Yeah.
if they don't bring him in.
I do know that there was the game against the Raiders. Go back and watch the game against the Raiders last year where Treader got absolutely destroyed on back-to-back plays on run calls of Chubb, where they just needed a first down and they could run the clock out and win the game.
Yeah.
And that left a sour taste
That's
in people's
interesting.
mouth.
I mean, everybody's going to have a bad game.
I
here
agree.
and there. He was still,
and by the way, I still think they should go get Jay. I'm in
yeah.
agreement with you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just trying to give you reasons as to
Yeah,
why
I
he's
hope whatever
probably
the
not
differences
here.
are, look, we got issues. We got to put them aside.
Yeah.
You got to put the best product on the field because we've talked about this ad nauseum. The window is getting shorter. It shrinks every day. McNuggets, what do you got?
Who better to talk about offensive linemen than our next guest, John Greco, who we're going to get to in 1 second. But before we get to John Greco, we're going to tell you what the internet has to say about Deshaun Watson's first performance in a Brown uniform. And when we do that, it's brought to you by PCC Airfoils. Looking for career advancement with great benefits? PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. All locations of PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Mentor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up. Plus, get full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. Apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more.
My PC Airfoils. Oh, I left out a C.
Yeah,
trying to do my Sharona.
You started
Look like
off
you've had
slow,
19
man.
months off.
Hey, we got John Greco.
I'm rusty.
We're going to run through these
I'm
real
rusty.
quick. We're going to run through these
All
real
right,
quick.
yeah, go ahead.
Let's
Give us-
take tag board.
Yeah.
Anthony, this
Hey,
is what
John
we
Greco.
asked.
John
Greco
Greco's
will
on the
be
tag
in
board.
1 sec, but first we're going to do the tag boards here. We just asked the internet, using only a GIF, what was your reaction to one quarter of Deshaun Watson? We got some good answers. Let's go to the first one, Anthony. I think that's a shot at Anthony Schwartz, a little hot potato. Let's go to the next one. I don't know what this meant, but it was funny. I liked it. Not quite sure exactly what it represents,
Is that
but
a piece of cheese?
throw
Yeah.
cheese on a
Piece of
cat and
cheese
see
over
what
the
happens.
cat's eyes.
Okay.
Can't go wrong with that. And let's go to the last one, Anthony. A little positivity.
Yeah.
Not the best, but it's going to be all right. So now,
I'll
without
co-sign
further
that
ado,
one. It'll be all right.
let's welcome John Greco
John
via the
Greco.
Gridiron.
There he is.
Looking for
Hey,
a
guys.
local roofer you can trust. Family owned since 2003. The Gridiron guys have grown to become Northeast Ohio's top-rated roofers. They exemplify quality work practices and are a valued resource for homeowners. Call 330-573-7967 today for a free estimate or roof inspection. Without further ado,
Gridiron, guys.
We missed that.
Yeah,
we
we
really
did.
did. Where did you shoot the one that we were playing when you were gone?
That was at the Shed Aquarium in Chicago.
Were people looking at you like, what the
Like
hell
we
is
were
this guy
nuts.
doing?
We were out of our mind. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what. John Greco's going to tell us whether J.C. Treader was garbage last year or decent.
Yeah, 'cause he
Jason
knows.
Treader was awesome. John knows that, right? John, they should bring Treader back, shouldn't they?
Absolutely. And right before I hopped on, I heard you say something about Joel Bitonio's comments. I didn't hear those. I didn't hear him make those comments. And like you, I am shocked that he actually said that. But he is speaking the truth.
Yeah.
And I agree that the player, especially when he's still active and ahead of the players' union, I think that does carry some serious baggage, and teams are trying to avoid that. So I think that is one of the reasons why J.C. Treader is not on a roster right now.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No,
I mean,
but-
he's still a frontline player.
John, isn't this, I mean, you talk about collusion. We've had it in
Yeah.
a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
This is, to me, if I'm a player, and to your point, Bitonio says it, he says nothing controversial.
Nothing. Yeah.
If you were to poll players, probably 99% of them would say, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. So it's obvious. How does something like this happen in good faith with the NFL? You would think the NFLPA would be furious over this, and that all the players would be too.
Yeah, I agree. And, unfortunately, when the teams are in training camp and the players are in training camp, these are conversations that are happening behind the scenes. But I mean, those guys have a full plate, and right now it's just about keeping the blinders on and moving forward. But yeah, absolutely. I would think with everything that's going on, my God, I mean, what a bad break for Nick Harris. I mean, I know the guy was working his tail off, and for him for the team to lose him, on that play as early as it happened, and when you have a guy that would be able to seamlessly enter the locker room. The players love him. He knows the playbook. He's a veteran. He's a talented player. He still has a lot left in the tank. I just don't see why and how it doesn't happen.
Is there any chance, I mean, at this point I wouldn't think so, but is there any chance JC wouldn't want to come back because the Browns cut him?
I would think that JC's a guy that is smart. He knows that, unless it was an ego thing that would get in the way or just out of spite. But how can you leave that money on the table when you know that your services are needed? And if anything, I would think that JC would want to go in there and do the terrific job that we all know that he's done and he would be able to do, just to kind of stick it to everybody and say, hey, listen, you made a mistake by letting me walk. Yeah. And I get it. I know Nick Harris was a drafted player and you want to see your young guys in there. Sure. But JC Tretter, like I said, he still has a lot in the tank. And I think that he would be able to come in and just like it never happened. Just let's move forward. It was a business decision. Let's all acknowledge that and move forward.
John, when you talk about Bill Callahan, right, what he's able to do up front, are the Browns more concerned with just getting somebody in here and filling this position, or do they think Bill Callahan can coach up one of the guys that's behind him to get to a level where he's respectable or not that much below J.C. Tretter and his talent?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, coaches like the Phil Jackson of offensive line minds. I mean, he's the Zen master of offensive lines. I remember I never had a chance to play for him, but I remember watching his drills and other coaches, the level of respect that they have for Coach Callahan and his drills and mindset and methodology. But, getting back to your question, I think that is the goal. That is, probably the plan right now, and they're discussing that behind the scenes. With the guys that we have on this roster, are we going to be able to kind of slap the patch? What's the guy on the commercial that slaps the patch? Flex Seal on the league and see if we can maneuver this. I think that's a conversation that's happening. But that center position is important, and it's one that kind of you don't really realize how big of an issue is until you have a problem there. Because in pass protection, the center's, he's not one-on-one a lot. He's always in combination with one of the guards, and you just need a competent person in there that can make the calls, get everybody lined up, because the Browns have talent across the board surrounding that center position. So you can't take too many steps back or it's going to be a glaring deficiency. You're going to see teams starting to line up their number one pass rushers and try to scheme things around where you can get everybody working out and you can isolate that center. So if a team smells blood in the water and they see a weakness at that position, they're going to try to exploit it. So you have to take it serious and consider all your options.
John, it's the whole butterfly effect. We were talking about this before you came on, and the fact that the only reason Nick Harris is out there is because they're trying to get Deshaun some reps and snaps before he's eliminated and suspended. So now you have to play your first string offensive line, and now this happens. So it's all, and I'm not necessarily blaming Kevin Stefanski. I'm just saying this is the butterfly effect of the Deshaun situation. Now you've lost your starting center. And the Eagles are coming into town. That's just a long-winded way for me to get to this. The Eagles are coming into town this week, and it's a controlled environment is what teams keep calling it. Why is this so beneficial, and why is this better than a preseason game when you have joint practices, you have two teams on the field, they're competitive and they're going at it? What makes this more of a controlled environment than a random preseason game? Does that make sense? Do you understand where I'm going with it?
I do, absolutely, and I hopefully I answer it the way that you're looking for. In my experiences with these joint practices, when they first started and when I was first involved with them, it was like a war zone. There was no control. It was guys were getting hurt. There were fights. It just turned into something that was, counterproductive. It was you were losing ground. Guys were getting injured, fights, like I said. So then that's kind of that buzzword, controlled environment, and you wanted to get that quality work in, which I think is great because in every experience that I've had, really after the first couple of years, it was controlled. You were starting to be smart about it. It was like, hey, look, we're not out here to try to win the Super Bowl today. Let's get quality work against someone that isn't wearing our same helmet. And I think it's great. You can break down into the individual drills and get good work done, and everybody's happy. No one's trying to finish each other. You're going to have a few rotten apples in there that are trying to do too much, but for the most part, it was just guys trying to look out for one another, get the quality work in, and move forward without taking a setback and getting anyone injured. But I like them. I think the players are starting to like them a little bit more because you get to see that competition with someone that isn't wearing your same helmet, your same jersey, and it gets a little bit of bragging rights, but great competition because the preseason game is kind of buttoned up. You're trying to evaluate your roster, but in those joint practices, you do get a sense and get a chance to see good on good. You're going to see the starting guard go against their starting defensive tackle, your starting receiver get reps against their starting corner. So it's you're not going to be taking these huge hits. The quarterback's not going to be getting hit, but it gives you a chance to get kind of that one-on-one matchup at full speed or as close as you can to replicate that in the week without having to worry about all the other variables with a preseason game.
John, I watched the first episode. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the first episode of Hard Knocks with the Lions? Did you happen to watch it?
I did, yes.
Okay, so obviously Dan Campbell is a player's coach. Like he seems like he's still a player, and I'm curious because like I remember Dustin Fox, my former radio partner, telling me like when he played with Mike Tice in Minnesota, Mike Tice was the same kind of coach, and he felt like maybe he was too close with the players, and maybe there was a level of like, oh, he's my buddy, not a coach. Is it an individual thing? Like, did you prefer to have a coach who was more like a traditional coach, or did you like the player's coach, or is it really an individual guy thing?
I think it's on an individual case basis. I like the players' coaches in particular. If you had a coach that actually played, you have a more intimate knowledge of being in those shoes. So I think I don't want to say they took care of you more. I don't want to make it sound like it was easier on the players, but I just think that there was more things taken into consideration that were more player friendly. You never wanted to get the sense that, hey, this is my buddy, because it is your coach and it is someone that's in a leadership role, and you have to have.
Oh no,
he's thinking. He just paused to think for a second. I'm sure he'll be right back.
Did we get him?
When we get him back, the one thing that I would love to hear him talk about is how much he would love to block for this group of running backs. Because we know what Chubb and Hunt can do.
Yeah.
We also know what Johnson can do.
Yeah.
We learned that Jerome Ford, and guys, I know I say I don't put too much into the preseason because it's who you're playing against. I was just watching him as a player, his footwork, his speed,
his vision,
his ability to sacrifice his body to make the touchdown catch, his vision, his instincts.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're going to give a 5-star for a preseason game, Ford gets it.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, he was impressive.
Yeah. But
I don't want to get carried away, but
I think in preseason running backs translate.
Well, John's back.
We got John back.
Momentary lapse in internet connection.
Yeah, a little
but
freeze
John's
action.
back.
John, I don't know if you heard it, but I would love to hear you talk about how much you would enjoy blocking for this group of running backs, because we know what Chubb and Hunt can do, but my biggest takeaway from Friday night was your dynamic in that room can change dramatically, and it can change quicker than I had originally thought, because I know Ford is looked at as a guy, Jerome Ford is looked at as a guy who will replace Hunt or, at least be a nice addition to that running back room. What did you take of his performance, and how much would you love blocking for this group of backs?
Man, that's a great question. That's one that I get often, and I'm like, man, I wish that I was in that room blocking for these guys. And look, it's a good problem if you're a Browns fan, and if you're in that locker room, you don't want to hear anybody complain about having too much talent in one room, and that's what makes things life miserable for these, the scouts and in the front office, and when they have to make these roster cuts and these moves, what are they going to do? But that just shows you the level of coaching, the level of work ethic, the level of skill that's in that room. And look, it's an orchestra out there, guys. And the way they work with the offensive line, with the tight ends and blocking, the scheme, and the way they execute. And when you see what impresses me the most about, especially these young running backs, their ability to turn maybe a 2 to 3 yard gain into 4, 5, and 6, and just stretch those extra yards out. I think that's what makes Kareem Hunt so dangerous. I think that's obviously Nick Chubb is a gifted athlete, but those guys never go down on the first hit. They're always falling forward. And that's what, we always talk about this division, how it's, you got to earn your stripes. It's black and blue. It's a physical game. That's how these guys are so successful late in the game and closing out games, because they're falling forward. They're leaning on you. They're wearing you out. And then it shows up in the fourth quarter for those big time runs. But the young running backs, I was extremely impressed. When they get the ball in their hands, They have great vision. They most importantly, they follow the scheme. They're hitting the right holes. They're reading the defense, and they're following their blockers. And it's something to get excited about if you're a Browns fan.
Yeah, I love Ford. Go ahead, McNuggets.
Hey, John, appreciate you joining us. Also, it's our second sports coat in UCSS history. So, John, thank you for getting dressed up
Very
for us today.
dressed up.
Wearing it well, too.
Yeah, it looks good.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. I'm at work right now. I'm at the office, so this is kind of my day-to-day thing. I
Unlike us
appreciate that.
slobs.
So if you have me again, you'll be seeing me at it again.
Well, I do have a real question, though, John. We talk about these joint practices. And, Steve, let's take tag board real quick. The Eagles are coming to town this week. I'm not sure if you saw this clip, but this was Jordan Davis, their rookie, pushing an offensive lineman back, no joke, 17 yards in practice last week. If you had to block a guy like this, who's 6'6", 340 pounds, and a freak, what do you do? How do you even attempt to slow this guy down? He is coming to Cleveland this week.
Well, I'll tell you what, right off the bat, if I was doing this drill in front of my fans, I would hope that the coach would have a quick whistle and get me out of it. He is obviously a big man. And, we can argue this drill until we're blue in the face because you'll have both sides of the aisle explaining why it's beneficial and who's had the advantage and who doesn't. But I thought the center did a pretty good job. And, I mean, he's holding on to his rear end, obviously, for the tail end of that clip. But Jordan Davis is a big man. And when he figures out his leverage and he figures out this game and how to get his hands right, he's going to be a serious issue for opposing offensive linemen.
Greco, what you got to do, you got to give him that high helmet and then go ahead and cut him up. You can't, one of them thousands. There you go. Now, when that hat disappears, that's how you got to get to Mr. Davis. But other than that, you're in trouble.
Exactly. You're gonna see a lot of guys on skates when he's bull rushing, but I've seen some of the best guys when they get that bull rush. Now Jordan's upright. Some of the times you see them duck their head, and we called it kind of a quick ole where the center would grab and just kind of tug the guy, and you would see his helmet would go right into the dirt and embarrass him. But it's kind of tough to do that when you have a man that big standing straight up and he's just outpowering you.
John, I'm curious your take on, obviously there's been so much talked about the off-the-field stuff with Deshaun Watson. But the reality is once you get on the field, my assumption is someone who never played in the NFL, is that I don't even want to say players don't care. It's just maybe that it doesn't matter when you're playing. It doesn't mean you have to love Deshaun Watson, but if he's your teammate, you're going to war with him, that's it. Is that, do you think there's guys, if you had to guess, do you think there's guys in that locker room who are like, I wish he wasn't on this team? Or do you think everybody's like, this guy's a great quarterback. I can't wait till he plays because we're going to kick some ass?
I don't think there's anyone that says they.
Well, hey, while we're waiting for John.
Locked him up again.
My questions.
Right. It was a good question, too.
And this is not VMix. This is just John's.
Yeah,
internet
it happens.
But while we're waiting for John to get back, and no big deal, he'll be back in 1 sec. I want to tell you guys about Built Bar real quick. Have you guys had Built Bars?
No.
Are they the power bars?
Yeah, little power bars.
Yeah, I think I've had one.
If you haven't, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. They got a couple new flavors, cookie dough chunk puffs, light chewy texture, real cookie dough, and of course they're covered in 100% chocolate.
Is this a new sponsor?
It's a Locked On sponsored combo thing with us that we
Nice.
have to read a couple times a week. So
All right.
yeah, we're going to get some Built Bars in here. I haven't tried them yet, but we are going to get some Built Bars in here. We'll make sure we share them all with you.
I've had one, and if it's the same bar that I'm thinking of, it was actually pretty good.
If they're going to sponsor, I like them.
Yeah, so if you get a chance, go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKDOWN15 to get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo
We'll wear their
code
shirts.
LOCKDOWN15.
Yeah.
Bull, to your question.
Yeah.
I really wonder.
And John's back, by the way, so we can
Oh,
bring
good. So we can answer the question.
So I want you to answer Bull's question, but I want to add a little bit of a twist to it. How many of the guys in the locker room have to hear from their wives about, I can't believe they have this guy because they were friends with Emily Mayfield and now the Mayfields are gone? That's a real part of this. Am I crazy?
No, you're absolutely right about that. As long as as long as you're using team sponsored and approved massage therapists, I think you're okay. You're in clear with the wives. But yeah, that is a topic of discussion. The network, the ladies network, it is strong because while the players are at work, the ladies are either home with managing the day-to-day things at the house or raising the family, or they have their own careers. So that is something that you don't want to be yelled at all day during in meetings and practice for missing your block, and then you come home and you have to face your other coach.
Go ahead and answer Bulls.
No, but you don't think the players they want to win, so they're happy. They're probably happy to have him here. No.
Absolutely, and sorry about the connection
it
here.
happens.
But absolutely, I don't think there's anybody in the locker room that says, "God, my gosh, I wish he wasn't here." I think that you're seeing more of like, let's just come to a resolution and get some clarity and some closure. Because Deshaun Watson is a talented player. Everybody knows that. Did he look a little bit rusty out there? Did the offense kind of sputter to start? Absolutely, but it's a preseason game, and you have some time to iron that out. But I think everybody is just like, hey, we just want some answers. We want to know what's ahead of us. Is he going to be in there in week 1, week 7, week 10, next year? Let's just get some answers. That way we can prepare and move forward. So, to answer your question, I don't think there's anybody in the locker room that says, we don't want this guy on our team. They may agree or disagree with some of his actions or alleged actions, but everybody wants that guy on his team because they know that he can help them win.
That's right.
John, let's drill down on that a little bit. When you talk about the locker room, there's a perception of that when you're in the locker room and somebody is asking you questions about another person, and they always talked about the distraction feature, right? Is he going to be a distraction to the team? How much is that really a thing? Like sometimes if you play offensive line and there's defensive line, right? Sometimes you don't even see those guys. You see them like once or twice during the practice and don't really see them. How much is that really a distraction when you have to answer questions about another person? Or is it just a cliche, or how much does that affect you?
He's really thinking about this
he
one. He is deep in thought there.
He's deep in thought on the question and on Built Bars, our new best friends.
Yeah, exactly.
But John's back.
John's back. So it's a quick freeze. There he is. Did you hear the question, John?
Yeah, I did. For me, it was only a distraction if you let it be a distraction. And everything to me outside of that building was just outside noise. And it didn't matter what was being asked. I knew how to field those questions. I knew how to just kind of deflect and say, hey, that's something that's a private matter between this player and this, whatever was going on. And that's on them. It's my job to block and prevent Jordan Davis from bull rushing me 20 yards back. These are things that were private matters, and they'll sort themselves out. I'm here to play and to be, the best I can be for this team. And I think that's what the common theme is. And look, the PR people have been coaching these guys up behind the scenes, trust me, since Deshaun was signed. So this is a matter that, it's annoying if they answer the questions about it, if you're in the locker room and, you just got off a field and you're sweaty. But these guys know the deal. They know it's a part of the game, and they just have to move forward.
John, you mentioned the PR people and guys getting coached up on answers and what to say when reporters go to certain areas. One of the things that we're scheduled to talk about here in the next couple of minutes, so I might as well bring it up with you before we let you go. I want to get your reaction to Deshaun's apology in the interview with Aditi on the pregame show ahead of Friday's game. What did you make of it? Were you surprised by it? Grade the comments on a 1 to 10.
Respectfully, I'm not going to grade the apology. I was surprised, to answer your one question. I was surprised that he did that, especially in that time. But I just think, everybody, this is just my opinion. I just think that everybody's trying to move on. And Deshaun chose to make that apology, whether that was, his attorneys or his staff, his people trying to encourage him to do that, or if he just wanted to genuinely say that and apologize and just to try to move forward a little bit. And whether he chose the right words or did it the right way, that's on him. And it's not for me to analyze it, but I think he's trying to just put an apology out there, show that everybody's trying to, put together as much good faith as they can, because they just want, I'll go back to it, they just want closure. They just want answers. They want to know, when is this guy going to be able to suit up for real and go out there on Sundays? Yeah. So I think that was just a step toward, trying to get to a conclusion about this whole thing.
All right. Former Browns offensive lineman
John.
John Greco joining us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports. So, John, thank you very much. Keep wearing the blazer, bro. It works. It looks great.
It's a good look.
It looks great. It's your thing whenever you're on the show. John, thanks, man. We appreciate you.
Guys, thank you. Send me some of those sponsored T-shirts, and I'll wear them under the jacket.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, guys. Let's pivot right to the apology, because I think the big surprise for me was that he threw it out there. Remember, there's still one civil case that is pending that has not been settled. and you would think that Busby is going to really sink his teeth into a public apology.
Oh, that's going to get settled.
So it likely is, and they know it, but I think the number just went up.
Yeah,
I think whatever that settlement number is probably went up because you're apologizing for something. And this is a huge departure. This is the first time, really, that we've seen Deshaun show any remorse. And remember, in the commissioner's comments last week, he said, and Sue L. Robinson felt like that there was no remorse on his behalf. So this is a complete pivot midway through or late in the game. What did you guys make of it? Jason, you could start.
It was incredibly, it felt structured. It felt scripted. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, let's just call it what it is. And I think Aditi handled it well. Like, you know, Aditi's in a really tough spot there.
Very
She's in a really tough spot.
Because it did beg a follow. Sorry for what?
And she's a journalist trying to be a journalist,
right,
while wearing a Browns logo on her shirt. And
tough spot.
Let's just acknowledge the elephant in the room. When the Browns are cashing your check, when they're signing your check, it really puts you in a difficult position in terms of what you can ask, how you can ask it. It was only 3 questions.
I've been in that room, by the way, as that person.
It's tough.
And she's working for the Browns at that point.
The temperature in the room is very apparent.
Yeah.
You know, she's not going to drill down and say, what exactly are you sorry for, Deshaun?
Right. Yeah. You can't.
You can't do that. And she handled it like I think she handled it as well as she could have.
Right.
She's a complete professional. It was somewhat cringeworthy. I felt bad for her.
Yes.
Because I know she's doing the math in her head. There were follows that were coming to her.
Oh, of course.
And she had to slam on the brakes. But I thought she handled it very, very well.
The whole thing, though, felt to me like this is his Hail Mary to try and get on the field this year.
Yep.
Because his agent comes out, well, I shouldn't say his agent, but there's a report last week that through the Associated Press that he's willing to take 8 games.
Right.
Okay. So that is like negotiating publicly, trying to see what we can get here. Now this apology, this half apology, somewhat remorse.
Desperate.
It's like him trying to salvage the back end of this season. I don't think it's going to work. I think we're probably not going to see Deshaun again until 2023. But this was his attempt. This felt to me like this was his attempt to try and get on the field at some point this season and saying, okay, I'll do whatever you guys need me to do. I'll say whatever I have to say. I got to try and get on the field.
Did you guys see it the same way?
It's catch-22. We talked about this before. I've always told people, it don't matter what he do. Like, it don't matter if he pay him off. It don't matter if he say he's innocent. It don't really matter if he give a statement and say he's sorry. There are going to be factions of people that don't really care about none of that. He's going to be what they say he's going to be, period. At the end of the day, he can issue the apology and the statement, but I'm not in the business of guessing how contrite you are about that. Once you get into how contrite you are, or who made you say it, right? I think it's one of those things where
did it feel forced to you?
I think they told him this is how we gonna move. See, here's the thing: when you dealing with time, and when you dealing with a legal system, and you dealing with civil cases they ain't even settled, he had to say what he gonna say. No lawyer's gonna let you come out and say, hey, you know what, G. Bush, I know you're on trial for murder. And I said, well, I'm remorseful for the family because I never really meant for them to be in this situation. They gonna say, whoa, you can't. What you remorseful for? They gonna take that and use that. What you mean? So in a situation now, remember before it was the counseling, right? He said, would you think about going to counseling? An admission is saying you going to counseling means you got a problem before you sign 24 cases. So this all played out the way it was going to play out. I think the league, I think the Browns, I think Deshaun Watson said, okay, this is my attempt to put it past me, continue to keep moving.
Did he look desperate in your eyes? Did the whole apology?
Well, I mean.
Because there was the 8-game thing that came out earlier in the week, and then the apology. When you put all that together, does it seem to you like he's a desperate man, knowing what the league wants, or at least what the commissioner wants, and he's trying to do whatever he can to save his season?
Anytime you're a black man and you're against the 8-ball, you always desperate. You live desperate. Desperation is in your bones. What are you talking about? He already went through 2 grand juries, right? That means your freedom is gone. They talk about indefinite suspension. Like, I can't never play again. I don't know when the next time I'm going to get an opportunity to play. Right. Hell yeah, he desperate. He like, yo, this is my life we talking about. My reputation, my family, all of that begs for desperation. And any person in that level, whether you white, black, red, whatever, you will be desperate to do what you can do in order to get your life back and try to at least get back to some sort of normalcy.
Well, guys, you know, yes. Did he not seem genuine to me? Without knowing for sure, he did not seem genuine. However, is it possible he just seemed not genuine because he was nervous or uncomfortable or people wanted him to do it, and maybe he did feel some remorse but didn't feel comfortable expressing it? I don't know.
Right.
But here's what I'm frustrated about with this whole situation. Much like everything else in this country, it's very polarized, and everybody's taking their camp. I'm supporting Deshaun Watson, or Deshaun Watson's the worst person on earth, and that's where we go. And I think that's wrong. I think both sides are wrong. I'm in the middle. I don't believe Deshaun Watson is innocent. I don't believe he's done nothing wrong here.
Right.
I think it's silly to believe he did nothing wrong. I think it's also unfair. I feel like we've gotten to a point in our society where if somebody does anything inappropriate with a woman, that they are all looked at with equally.
Sure.
From touching a woman's hair to rape, it's all just put in the same category, and that's it. And that's absurd. Matt Damon, a year ago or 2 years ago, made a comment similar to what I just said, and he got crushed.
Killed for it.
He got crushed.
Temporarily canceled.
I am not saying that Deshaun Watson is innocent. He based on what I know. Again, I don't know all the facts.
Right.
Based on the information I have, it seems pretty obvious that he crossed the line with at least one woman, if not more, and was inappropriate.
Right.
I also think it's pretty clear he didn't rape anybody. He didn't force anybody to do anything.
And it's pretty clear there's some people who had consensual sex with him.
Yeah, people had some consensual sex with him, and he didn't hit anybody, okay? And I think that's important to note, because I think the way he's been painted by one side is that he's the worst guy ever, and the way he's being painted by the other side is he's completely been railroaded, and none of those things are true.
Were you okay
most
with
likely.
the word predatory? Because that, to me, the word that
I don't
jumped
even like
out
that
from
word.
Sue L. Robinson,
Yeah.
predatory to me has such a negative connotation, and it sounds like that there was prey involved, and he was targeting these women, and there's probably levels to predatory, but the word predator to me, and obviously we're talking about sex, so now you put those two words together, and you can see why Roger Goodell pulled that word out specifically and said his behavior was predatorial.
But we've been pulling them type words out. We real good with catchphrases, right?
Yeah.
Those catchphrases are little things that they throw on you, like, hey, I'm not saying you're lazy, but are you the first guy in, last guy out? Those words have connotations that follow people. When you say predatory, and like I said, Bull was correct. At some point in time, you got to ask a woman who is a grown individual, did you make a bad decision? Because there are people that have reached back out to Deshaun Watson after the first time the encounter happened. Multiple times.
Yeah.
So at what point are we going to stop saying either women are going to be equals or women are going to, the thought process, they don't have a thought process. They're below.
Yes, and I agree,
grown.
But also, here's the thing. He crossed the line by whipping it out, if you know what I mean, right? And some of the women were okay with it, and some of the women did not want it, and they were really bothered by it. And I don't blame them. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame them. But I don't think the guy should be banned for life for that.
So I think everybody's kind of in your camp.
Yeah.
I think everybody looks at it and says,
but I don't think so, Jay. I think
without
there's people
fault.
Yeah.
Well, we're hearing from the vocal minorities on both wings.
Yeah,
and that's the way,
right.
and sometimes that moves the pendulum with public perception, and it shouldn't. But that's the way it is. That's just the way the system works. But I'm wondering to you, you're saying he whipped it out, and everybody seems to have come to that agreement that, this was definitely going on. Sue Robinson says she believes that's what happened.
Right.
Is that predatory behavior? In that setting, with multiple women doing that, does that, in your mind, qualify predatory behavior?
I would call it more, maybe
it's certainly aggressive behavior.
I would say it's inappropriate behavior more than predatory.
I would say that's fair.
Yeah.
If you are looking on any dating app, if you're using massages in order to try to hook up with people, that is not a good look. And that's what he was doing. Some of the individuals were excited. Okay, cool, let's do it. Some of them weren't. At the end of the day, when you do that in a place of business, that is misconduct at the end of the day. However, we are going to have to stop saying, like, he forcefully raped people. That never happened.
No.
And so one of the things that we got to be very crystal clear on is your messaging. At the end of the day, I don't got no problem with nobody saying what he did was incorrect or wrong. But one thing that we got to stop conflating is, I had consensual sex with somebody in a place of business, or I forcefully raped that person. And those two things are night and day.
I think what Ben Roethlisberger, people make a big thing of the number. And yeah, he was inappropriate with some of those women, maybe all of those women, right? But what Ben Roethlisberger was accused of is much more serious, even though it's less women than what Deshaun Watson is accused of. And I don't know. And again, when I make this argument, I feel like some people can say, you're just giving him a pass. I'm not giving him a pass. I think he should be suspended. I think a full season or indefinite is too much.
Well, let's talk about that. You said you believe that it's going to be we won't see him for the rest of the year.
I think he's done for the year.
I'm kind of thinking, guys, and I know I said last week that I believe that there was no way he would step on the field and that the league would make some sort of indefinite suspension announcement before 5 o'clock on Friday. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
He was able to play. Today's Monday. Sue L. Robinson's decision came on a Monday. A lot of things like this happen at the beginning of the week or the end of the week. And there are a lot of folks that think it's way beyond time, and we need to get wherever we're going. We need to get
at
there.
This point, yes.
Does anybody have a hunch that today is the day? Am I the only one who's thinking like we should be on extra high alert here? Where are we?
You guys were both at Browns camp this weekend, right? Is there any buzz about it at all?
I hear none.
In terms of a decision, I think we're gonna, just like with the Judge Robinson decision, there were sort of trickles that it was going to come on this day. I don't think it's just going to be bam. I think we're going to get the hints and the trickles and the lead up of.
You do?
So I don't think it's going to be today because I think we'd know by now if it was going to be today. I could be wrong on that, but I think that we're going to have some sort of feeling of it's going to be tomorrow, it's going to be Wednesday, it's ahead of time.
You do.
I just think we're going
to
have
be some prior notice.
I'll be just trying to be honest with you. I at some point in time, this is the fatigue that you get, right? The fatigue that Deshaun Watson gets when he makes a statement is, look, man, even our judicial system has a right to a speedy trial. I'm not going to be sitting here for 2 years doing everything and doing all these gymnastics that you want me to do. If you're going to say it's 8 games, give me the 8. If it's 6, give me the 6 and keep it moving. But this perp walk that we doing that's continuously moving, assassinating this character is like, okay, league, you have all the information that you need.
Right.
The woman said 6 games. You obviously want a year. What do you have to think about?
Well,
give them what you're going to give them.
In fairness, Peter Harvey just got the case. So I think, and I sort of thought of this camp too of, well, he's just going to come over the top and give Roger whatever Roger wants, and we're going to have it like that. But Peter Harvey, either they're trying to make it look like he's doing his due diligence, or he's doing his due diligence. But Sue Robinson had all the information for how long before she ruled? What was it, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
More months.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. No, from the time where like the final papers were filed.
I think it was 3 weeks.
Was July 11th.
Yeah.
So from the time
Extended
of
to the 12th, I believe.
of the final papers filed to her until she rendered a decision was multiple weeks.
Yes, you're right.
So Peter Harvey just got this not that long ago. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that it's been. I mean, trials can go on for months.
I think this is expedited, right? They said it's expedited procedure.
Supposed to be.
My thought process of the thing is like, hey, yeah, Peter C. Harvey is getting the case. We all believing that Peter C. Harvey is really looking at this. He really doing due diligence. He going over. He really doing. He knows what Roger told him to do.
It's unfair to impugn his.
It's his name that's going to be on this.
It's unfair to imply that he's not. We have no reason. I mean, look, you can. It's okay to be suspicious, but do you know Peter C. Harvey?
Hey, I know what Sue Robinson just got done to her. I know what that process looked like.
No,
25 years. We're gonna take what she listened. He picks out 3
words. So if Peter
words.
C. Harvey comes back tomorrow and says 6 games, now he's cool.
Oh, that's not happening.
But what if it happens?
Are you convinced he's going to be suspended for the year?
I'm
not.
I'm convinced it's going to be more than 6 games.
It's going to be more than 6
I'm convinced
games,
of that.
definitely.
Yeah, that's the bare minimum.
I said this Friday. I think the perfect decision, in my mind, is one that neither side is happy with, but both sides can live with.
And at this point, that would be 12 games.
It would be somewhere
10 or
between
12.
6 and 17.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me again. Well, you can't fool me again. In the
Yeah.
words of George W. Bush.
So you're saying so you're not giving Peter C. Harvey the benefit of the doubt
Oh, no.
just because he's the NFL's guy.
No.
Yeah.
They thought you was going to walk him out here. And there's like, hold on. So we had the woman first. So the woman is like, she's doing it for the women, right? And then now we got the black guy. We get the minority guy, bring him out here so we can run that interference. So they got to give him a shot, right? Because he's on a diversity unit. He's doing all. No. We already know what you told him y'all want it done. Now, all you got to do is do it in 2 weeks. We don't got to have the whole charade, right? We can just get to it.
But this is still his name that's going on this. And I do believe he will probably carry out what Roger wants. But I think he needs to review all the facts first and he knows history is going to have his name next to
You aren't kidding.
Deshaun Watson. It's not Roger Goodell's name. That's Peter Harvey's name. I think he takes that part of it. I don't know. I'm going to never have one conversation with him. If it were me, I would take that part very seriously.
And my gosh, G. Bush, I hope you're wrong. I respect your opinion, but I certainly hope you're wrong because if this is truly this charade and everybody's playing out the part that Roger Goodell is the lead director of, and I know that it looks that way already with the 6 games being
Yes.
overturned,
Yeah.
but this is a new person with his own reputation, and I would say no to Roger Goodell. Like if he asked me, my conversation with Roger would be this. Do you really want my opinion? Do you want my decision? Because I'm not going to rubber stamp yours. And Peter C. Harvey is a man of integrity. We don't have no reason to believe that Peter C. Harvey is on the take.
And probably a man of wealth as well. So
And he's where he's at because of Roger Goodell. Let's be clear.
But why would he do? The only thing I would say, like my first reaction is the same as yours, and I still mostly feel that way. But I would say to Jay's point, like, wouldn't he just turn it down if he was going to be a rubber stamp?
I would.
Jesse Robinson could have turned it down if she knew she was going to have to carry water
But she
for them.
wasn't a rubber stamp. I mean, they turned. She
didn't do what
She
the
was
league
agreed
wanted.
to a long time ago. She wasn't dropped into this case.
And she did not do what the league wanted.
well,
we know that now.
Well, here's the thing. She gave a 6-game suspension, right?
Right.
So they had the level of respect that they said they had. And they thought that she had her judicial reasoning was solid and the reason why both teams and both sides picked her. Why in God's green earth would you have a woman who's heard all the information give you what she thought, and you turn around and say, well, we're going to take a couple words and then go move on the opposite end of the spectrum?
They did it because
They're going to do what they want to do.
She basically found him guilty, essentially, but said there was no precedence for giving a longer suspension. And so, maybe I'm just giving the league the benefit of the doubt, which I shouldn't. They probably would have reversed it.
No, you were right. I mean, she said you're guilty.
Yeah.
She called it among the worst behavior that she's seen.
She said the league proved its entire case.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she said, but you guys also have a jacked up system of handing out punishments.
Right.
So this is all I can do.
Right.
So to me, Roger gets his way, or he extends the game.
Right.
Or he changes the rules.
The player should have
and
never
in this
agreed to
case,
the
I think
system.
what he's doing is he's saying, yeah, you're right. He's guilty. But no, you're wrong. We can give him more than 6 games.
Right.
And that's what he's looking for.
We got Tim.
Timmy!
All right.
We got Tim Couch, as always, on Monday. Tim, thanks for joining us via the Gridiron Guys hotline. Good to see you. And Tim,
good to see you guys.
take it away.
Tim, your thoughts on Friday's game? Let's start there.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I think, the obvious thing, everything that everyone wants to talk about is Deshaun. How did he look? And just anxious to see him back out on the field for the first time. And, he looked rusty. He overthrew some balls. But, I think at the end of the day, he had a couple drop passes and his day could have been fairly solid. I thought he looked good in the pocket. He moved around well. But, I think the receivers, just kind of let him down. But I think, the biggest thing that jumped out at me was some of these rookies. The plays that they were making out there, they looked like some of these draft picks looked like they're going to be players. Ford looked good. Isaiah Thomas looked good. Emerson had an unbelievable pick 6. So there were some good things in there. I thought the defense looked really good. They were flying around getting to the football. But offensively, they got a long way to go, especially in the passing game.
Tim, you mentioned the drops. They were both by Anthony Schwartz. You mentioned the rookies look good, but Anthony Schwartz was a rookie last year. He was a 3rd-round pick. And right now, to me, he looks like, again, I'm not basing this on just this preseason game. It's mostly based on last year. But the body of work so far, although it's not big, on Anthony Schwartz has been very unimpressive and not worthy of a 3rd-round pick. Are you starting to worry that he is not worthy of that 3rd-round pick, or you need to see a lot more?
Yeah, I definitely am. I kind of, I remember when he was in college, I thought, he was just kind of a speed guy, and the production really never flashed at you. He wasn't a guy that was out, catching the ball consistently and making plays consistently. But once he got the ball in his hands, he was electric. Obviously, he's so fast. But I think it's just like you said, it's been up and down throughout his career. And to start the preseason in week 1 with 2 balls right in your chest, to drop those is not a good look. So hopefully he can get it together and somehow find a way to be a little more consistent out there.
Tim, were you surprised that Jacoby Brissett didn't get any playing time? If it was me, I would want to get out there and get my feet wet a little bit. Now we got 2 games. I know they wanted to give him some reps during the inter squad stuff with the Eagles, but I was kind of surprised he didn't get no reps. What do you think?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised. I think you're talking about a guy that's obviously going to be your starting quarterback week 1 and in a new system. So I think that's the biggest thing for me. I certainly would have wanted to play if I were Jacoby. I would have wanted to be out there. But, I guess, I'm sure Stefanski and his staff has a certain plan on how they want to divide up these reps and what they wanted to see. I think they saw some great things from Josh Dobbs. He looked really good, man. He was impressive out there, making plays all over the field, throwing the football really accurately down the field, extending plays with his legs. So he looked really good. But, I think with Jacoby, you want to kind of see what you have. You see it in practice and you see it all that, and he can play the game. He understands the system, but you want to see it in game situations as well. Be out there with the guys, calling the plays in the huddle and live action. So hopefully, this week he can get some more reps and we can kind of see what this offense is going to look like going into week 1.
Tim, Kevin Stefanski's track record has been not really to play the starters early in the preseason. The decision to play Deshaun, I was in favor of it. I had been saying for weeks it kind of made sense to me. Why do you think it was important to them to get him on the field when it's probably going to be quite a while before we see him again? Is that reason enough to put him on the field, or why do you think it was important to them to get him out there and get him a few snaps?
I think it was simply just to knock the rust off a little bit. He hasn't played at all last year. Just who knows when he's going to play again. So it's just an opportunity they had to say, hey, we don't know when he's going to ever be eligible again to play as far as this season goes. So let's get him out there. Let's get him some reps while we can before ruling comes down, and maybe he's suspended for the entire season. So let's just knock a little rust off, see what he can do, try to get him somewhat familiar within the system, and just get out there, take a hit. See some live action, call the plays. Feel that pace of the game, the speed of the game. So I think that was probably it. I really do. Just as far as, just let's knock a little rust off and try to get him a little more comfortable.
Tim, we talked a little bit about Anthony Schwartz, but I'm going to go 1 to 10 here on the panic meter. 1 is you're not concerned, things are going to be fine. 10 is break glass in case of emergency. Are you breaking the glass yet?
I'm not breaking the glass yet. I'm never going to panic after week 1 of a preseason game. Those kind of games are games where you don't game plan at all for those. You're just out there just calling kind of, just random plays that you've been working on so far of the installation of the system. You're not really specifically game planning for a team and trying to game plan to get the ball to guys in certain situations or anything like that. So I'm not going to panic yet. Certainly, I would love to see more out of the wide receiver group. I think that's probably the weak part of the offense. Your offensive line is strong, the running backs are strong, feel pretty good about the quarterback position, but that wide receiver group is something that I'm going to be following as the preseason goes on and into the season, because it could be certainly a weak spot for this team.
Yeah. Tim, we've talked a lot about the Nick Harris injury. Obviously, he's going to miss the whole season here. We talked about bringing J.C. Treader back. Joe Bitonio suggested that he's not on a team because of his role in the Players Union. What do you think of all that? And do you think they should try to bring him back?
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I didn't know that Joel had made those comments. Not sure if that plays a factor or not, but certainly that was a tough situation, man, to lose your starting center in week 1 of a preseason game. You hate to see anybody go down, much less a starter. So that's a situation they're going to have to address. That position is so key in the offense. You're talking about a position that's making all the calls up front, getting the guys going in the right direction, changing protections and things like that. So it's there's a lot of communication that happens between the center and the rest of the offensive linemen. So you got to get a guy in there that you feel comfortable with, who's going to gel quickly with the rest of the offensive line and get everyone kind of on the same page up there and kind of get that unit gelled together. So they're going to have to go in some direction here. Hate that this has happened so early in the season, but hopefully they can find somebody to plug in there and he'll be a good fit.
Tim, I thought it was interesting. The first play of the game, Deshaun rolls to his left and he sails the ball over Schwartz's head. But I couldn't help but chuckle a little bit, thinking, "Hey, That's Baker Mayfield's trademark. What did you make of that being the first call offensively for the Browns?
Yeah, you wonder if there's something to that. That certainly is. They did a lot of that with Baker rolling to the left, and Baker was pretty good at making some of those throws going in that direction, which is pretty tough on a right-handed quarterback. But, I think Deshaun, when you hadn't played in a while, those are the kind of things that, you see that are going to look rusty within a game when you haven't been in that live action. You're trying to, get your mechanics are really important when you're rolling to the left. You got to really flip your hips, get your shoulders turned. And he just kind of rushed the throw a little bit and the ball sailed on him. So, I think that's exactly the type of stuff that they wanted to, kind of get him out there and try to knock that rust off a little bit and just see where he's at, physically. And, just because we haven't seen him out there in a while. So I think, calling those type of plays, put him in a tough situation right off the bat. Rolling to the left, trying to hit a crossing route is a very tough throw for a quarterback, especially one who hadn't played in over a year.
Tim, obviously it's been a while since you were a rookie, and the game has changed a ton, even in the 20-some-odd years since you were a rookie. But what is the adjustment like for a rookie, whatever position you may be? I mean, obviously it's different for a quarterback than other positions. Mm-hmm. But what are some of the toughest things about being in your first training camp as a rookie that's different from college?
Yeah, I think, some of the biggest adjustment are just being on a team with older people. You're coming from a team where you were playing with 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and now you're out there with 30-year-old guys with families and, jobs are on the line. So you certainly feel the pressure amp up, that you're trying to take a veteran's job as well. They're bringing you in for a reason. Especially, if you're a high draft pick, they're expecting you to play pretty much right away. So you feel those things, and then just kind of, the stuff within the system. You're trying to, get familiar with the terminology within a system, because it's so different probably than what you were running in college. So you're just trying to figure out where to be, calling, being in the right spot, just getting, not making the mental errors. You can't perform up to your level physically that you want to perform at if you don't understand the system and understand where you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to line up, how deep is this route supposed to be, or, for me, how many step drop is this? I need to, find the rhythm and the timing with the offense. So there's a lot of moving parts to it for a rookie when you're coming in, that you feel the pressure, obviously, of, being in the NFL and having to perform and your job's on the line, but, also just kind of catching up and getting familiar within the system.
Tim, let me ask you this question, because I think the Cleveland Browns have a really good surrounding cast. I think they got, we talk about the offensive line, they talk about the backs. Philosophically, if you got Jacoby Brissett and you're going to have to run the ball a lot and you're going to have to play really good defense, what do you think? Do you think that in the league today you need a top 5 guy at quarterback or top 10 guy, fringe guy, and you need to be a pass-dominant offense when you need to? Or do you think you can win a Super Bowl doing other things like maybe, ball control or top defense or just really a really strong running game? Do you think you can do that in today's game a different way than just having a traditional top 10 quarterback?
I think you can win games, throughout the regular season doing that kind of stuff. But I think to go all the way, to make a run deep in the playoffs, get to a Super Bowl and win it, I think you have to have a quarterback that's a difference maker at the end of the day, because, these defenses they're going to take away the run game. If they want to stop your run game, they'll load up the box. They can put the game in the quarterback's hands. And if you don't have a quarterback that can sit in the pocket in today's NFL and consistently make throws and, even extending plays with the legs. We see so many of these quarterbacks now that are so much more mobile than the guys that were playing way back in the day. It's really tough on the defense when you have a quarterback that can do both. So, I think, me personally, I think you do have to have a top flight guy back there with a lot of talent around him, but you have to have a guy that you really trust in those situations. When a game's on the line, you're on the road in a playoff game or whatever, and it's 3rd and 8, you got to have a guy that you can call a play and you trust he's going to stand in there and make the right throw, make the right read, and be accurate with the football, take care of the football in those situations. So yeah, I think you can win a few games here and there in the regular season. You can kind of mask it a little bit, but to get to that next level, I think you have to have a difference maker at the QB position.
Well, then that just begs the question, do they need to go get Jimmy G? And I apologize if we've talked to you about this. I don't remember, but and there's a lot of
there's a difference maker though.
Well, and that's where I was gonna go with this. Do you think he's, to me, right now they're downgraded from Baker to Jacoby Brissett. They've downgraded the most important position. Is Jimmy G enough of a difference maker to go get when you factor in? And I don't want to get in the weeds and down the rabbit holes of cap space and trying to roll over cap space, and is Jimmy worth it? Just on this, in a vacuum surface level, is Jimmy G enough of a difference maker in what you're talking about to go get him if it comes back that Deshaun's going to miss most or all of this season?
In my opinion, he would be an upgrade. What they have at the position right now. Obviously not including Deshaun, but with the guys that they're going to roll with this season, with Deshaun being out, I think Jimmy G would be an upgrade. And if you look at Jimmy G's career, man, the guy's a winner. I think he is one of those guys that I mentioned that he's going to make plays in the playoff game. This guy is, he's won playoff games. He's taken teams on deep runs in the playoffs. Touchdown interception ratio. There you go, 71-38. He's a guy who takes care of the football. Completes it at a high percentage. So, yeah, I think he would be a certain upgrade at the position if there is going to be a significant suspension for Deshaun. I think you have to look at a guy like Jimmy G and bring him in because I think he really would elevate the offense. He's with the run game that we have, the offensive line that we have, I think Jimmy G would certainly be an upgrade at the position.
But if you believe that you have to have an elite guy, I don't think anybody on this panel is going to argue that Jimmy G is an elite guy. He's an upper half of the league quarterback, no doubt.
I trade for him. As long as Watson's coming back this year, I would trade for Garoppolo.
Right.
If
With
he's
the
not,
thinking
I wouldn't.
being that you still need that elite guy in the playoff run. And Jimmy G has been close, but he hasn't been able to get his team over the hump.
But he's better than Brissett to get you to Watson.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm just comparing it to what they have on the roster right now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Jimmy G is the top 5 or 10 guy. Just what they have to roll with this season. If Deshaun is suspended for an extended period of time, I think Jimmy G would be an upgrade compared to what they have on the roster right now.
So, Bull, you're not going to get Jimmy G if Watson is out for the entire season.
I wouldn't. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with Tim that he's a big upgrade over.
Makes you better,
Brissett.
but he's not going to be the guy that gets you
right
over the
because
top.
I'm ultimately now I'm factoring in the cap stuff. If there was no cap factor, then I'd probably still do it anyway.
Right.
But because of the cap and how much of a hit that could take for next year, I would only do that if I still thought I could win the Super Bowl this year. I personally don't think they can win the Super Bowl with Garoppolo. But if, say, Watson suspended 12 games, I think Garoppolo gives them a better chance to give Watson a chance to get them to the Super Bowl.
Jay, I know
That's how
you said take the cap stuff out of it.
It's impossible to do.
Yeah.
You can't take the cap stuff out of it. I don't see how they manage both. I don't see how they bring Garoppolo on.
Well, we have to get to the bottom. First of all, we need to see the suspension, and we need to see how it relates back to the CBA, because I can tell you nobody knows the answer right now in terms of does the contract toll, when does the contract toll, when does it count for this year?
So if he's suspended for this year, is his salary $1 million for next year?
If it's an entire year, the contract, I believe, tolls.
Shifts. And then next year he's only on the books for $1 million.
And then his cap hit for next year would be $10 million.
And then you could do the Garoppolo
And you
deal.
could do the Garoppolo because he's only a $10 million hit on the cap next year.
Yeah.
If it's anything less than a full season, I think right now, I think there's a lot of people that don't really know the answers.
Maybe.
Well, listen. Hey, if it's a 10% chance, right? I didn't talk myself into it. I'm good at that. It's like me going to a car lot. You know what? I wasn't going to even buy that, Tim. But now I'm buying it. Listen, if there's a 10% chance that he can get you to a Super Bowl, I do whatever the hell it takes. Give me, because to me, it's 3 years, right? Right? It could be 2 in the possible that the Browns are got where they need to be going. It's this year, next year. Watson thing happened. We was thinking he gonna play. He ain't playing. But if it's only a 10% chance, I don't care about nobody's money. I'll spend all of y'all's money. If you ask me where I want to go, I'm not telling Tim Couch I want to go to TJI Fridays. I want to go to Morton's, Tim. Come on now. I know you got it. Come on now. Come on, man. I'm spending all of y'all's money. So, no, I'll take Garoppolo.
But there are ramifications when you build your team.
I'll let them figure it out.
Let's worry about that next year.
I know you say you're the assistant GM. Bro, you're never going to be the GM until you start thinking about the cap.
I don't want that smoke anyway. I want to be the underboss.
Hey, we got to get to the most important question, Tim. So Tim is going to be in the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Fantasy Football League. Have you ever, and Tim is one of 2 former Browns players, including Leroy Horde, who will be in this league. Jason's in it. G is in it. Jay, for some reason, can't be in it because
it's
so
not up
stupid.
to me.
It's not your fault.
It's my primary employer.
It's a silly rule, but whatever. It's not your fault. But Tim, have you played fantasy football before?
Literally have no idea what I'm doing. Never played fantasy football.
Really?
I'm going to be so bad at this, guys. It's going to be laughable. So,
This is awesome.
Watch, he's going to end up winning the league. End up winning the league.
I'm supposed to be the dude that has no clue about fantasy football. I don't already golf, but Tim, you got to kind of know.
I've been playing fantasy football for 20 years, man. I'm going to kill all
I've got
you
a
guys.
14-team league trophy in my man cave.
There
right
you
now.
go.
It's a traveling trophy.
I can't believe you can't be in it.
I'm still.
so dumb.
It's not. I'm
That
still
hurts.
trying to pull some
Yeah,
strings
let's
here.
straighten
Mike
things
Polk
out.
can't do it either.
Yeah, I know. Anyway.
We don't want to infringe on our journalistic
So,
integrity.
Tim, are you prep? Are you deep into fantasy prep right now, getting ready for this draft?
I haven't even looked at it, to be quite honest with you.
Put it off until 10 minutes before the draft. Select
I'll
auto
figure it
draft
out.
and just let the computer do it for you.
I won.
That's what I tell
That's
newcomers.
Yeah, right.
Get on one of these websites and just go off whatever they recommend, man. That's what
You
I'm
watch,
doing.
he's going to win the league. I'm telling you.
right.
He's the dark horse beginner's to win the damn league. Because he's that guy who's going to pretend like he knows nothing,
Yeah.
but his knowledge of the game is going to take over
That
at
is an
some point,
advantage.
and he's going to ride this thing to the top. Hey, I got to get your thoughts on the kicker. We haven't talked about my guy
He
yet.
made a field goal.
We haven't
and 3
talked
extra
about my
points.
guy
Yeah.
yet. I thought the kicking game looked great, and I'm not just talking about the extra points and the field goal.
Yeah.
But I liked what he did on kickoffs. It was obvious to me that they had told him for one of the kickoffs, put it between the 5 and the goal line.
Yeah.
He did it. And then I wanted to see how strong his leg was, and I think the Browns did too, and they said the next one, lay into it. And he almost kicked it out of the end zone.
Certainly better than the return game early, which looked awful.
Yeah, the return game's
Yeah.
all kinds of
Jamarcus
drama.
Why wasn't
Bradley.
Felton back there, by the way? Do we have any clarity on that?
On what?
The returns.
No. We have nothing. We have no clarity on that, do we?
I didn't. What was the question?
Clarity on what they're going to do with returns on the
Because
return
Felton
game.
wasn't back there returning kicks.
No, I don't know why we
But
didn't.
he
do
was
it.
in practice.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I think it's probably just the same thing, trying to limit the injury risk, particularly after Jakeem Grant goes down. I think Felton's going to wind up being the guy.
You do.
He was doing it at practice.
You a believer in Cade York, Tim? You all in
like
on
the
him?
kicker?
Yeah, I mean, so far, I like what I see so far. That's subject to change with a kicker at any point, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got to
can
earn
turn
your
on those
keep
guys.
every day as a kicker.
Are kickers real
Yeah.
football players, Tim?
Tough life.
Are kickers real football players?
I tell you what, they are when they trot out there with no time left on the clock, and you're counting on them to win a game. They become
true.
real football players real quick for you at that point.
Yeah.
It is, after all, called football.
Yeah.
So
They
I mean,
should change the name.
if you don't think kicking's a big part of it, you're missing something.
We should change the name to pass ball. I mean, that's what it
McNuggets is raising his hand in there. Do you think they're players, kickers?
Oh, kickers are definitely players. So are punters. We have a comment from YouTube from Kid Wilson that wants to give Tim some fantasy advice.
Okay.
How to win fantasy football. Don't draft any Browns.
Oh, that hurts.
That's not true, though.
Nick
I
Chubb?
actually disagree
Yeah,
with
but you
that.
know what?
Yeah.
Chubb
Yeah,
is not a
I
great
would take
fantasy
Nick
player.
He's a better
He's
NFL
not.
player than fantasy
Yeah,
player.
he is a
Yes.
much better.
He's a good fantasy player, but he's not an elite
he's not-
fantasy
yeah.
player.
Yeah.
Wait, Tim, I do have a question for you, though. Throughout your career, can you think back? Do you have any vivid memories of a preseason game? Is there one moment throughout your preseason career that stands out, or as a guy who was starting in the league, do those games just kind of go in one ear and out the other?
Really, about the only preseason game I can remember is my very first one, because we played in the Hall of Fame game,
Yep.
and we got to play against the Dallas Cowboys, and that's when they still had Aikman and Emmett and Irvin and those guys. They were at the end of that run, obviously, but I grew up loving those guys, big Troy Aikman fan, and I got to play against them in my first game, and we won the game on a field goal to win the game and at the end. So that one stands out, but to be honest with you, I don't remember any more preseason games that I ever played in. So those are pretty much, you just wash them out of your memory.
Doesn't that tell you how much the game has changed? That Troy Aikman played in the Hall of Fame game in that year? I mean, a guy like that would never have played now in the Hall of Fame game, a veteran player like that.
Trevor Lawrence wouldn't even play.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're
Trevor
right.
Lawrence was terrible as a rookie who needs some work.
Yeah.
But a guy like Troy Aikman, who was already on his way to the Hall of Fame, would have never played in the Hall of Fame game. But the game has changed.
Hey, and speaking of kickers, I know he's a punter, and I don't know if you can call this up on tag board.
We can't legally play it, but the 82-yard punt
I
from the
thought we
Bills,
could if it was on, as long as it was through tag board.
not if it's game highlights.
Dude, that was one of the best punted footballs I have ever seen in my life.
He
He
punted
struck it
further
on
than
the
Tim could throw
7-yard
it.
line, and it ended up out of the end zone. It traveled over.
Absurd.
It traveled 100 yards. Really.
Tim, have you seen this?
I have, yeah, I saw it on Twitter. The guy from the Bills, right?
He
Yeah.
smoked that ball.
Yeah, just unbelievable, man. Yeah.
I can't believe we can't show it. That stinks, man.
Nope.
These restrictions are garbage.
Fine.
Yeah.
Flat garbage. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful. Yeah, the NFL needs our money.
Yeah, right. And I'm
Get over
not collecting enough. All right.
Morons.
Thanks, Tim.
Hey, Tim, you're awesome,
All right, guys.
bro. Good luck. Hey, you know
Thanks,
what? I
guys.
can't have a team, but I will be your general manager. If you need any advice on trades on draft day, you got my number. Horn me in.
That's
I'll get you through this thing.
That's collusion.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You could get Mike Polk. If Jay gets Tim, you get Mike Polk as your consultant.
That's cool.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's cool.
Thanks, Tim.
Garrett's got the wrong end of that one.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Polk's like hitting 70% of his good bet, bad bet.
Yeah,
So
that's just luck.
he's doing something right.
That's just luck.
Thanks, Tim.
Tim, you're the best, man.
All right,
Thanks, brother.
See you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, Tim.
Hey, before we continue, we have a quote from Browns camp that we got to get to.
Oh, good.
This is quite the quote, and I'm
Hey, let
curious
us
what
do
your
quotes.
guys' take is. Let's take it from Stump Mitchell. He was asked if we've seen the best of Nick Chubb yet. He said, quote, "Hell no, we have not." So my question to you guys is, we're all in agreement Nick Chubb's a top 2-3 back in the league. How much better can he get, and where?
He could be a
is
bigger
game
factor
improved?
in the passing game. That's it.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I'd
he can't be
still
out
like
of
to see him more at the goal line too. You know, I don't know
Yeah.
why there's this perception that we're at the 1 now and he comes out of the game. There's been too many times when we were 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and goal.
Yeah, but that's
and
just
he's
about
not getting the ball.
opportunity.
No,
Like,
I know, but
yeah.
you've seen him in the weight room. This guy's gonna push his
I
way
know.
through.
Bro, listen, man, I'm starting to. I don't want to keep going back to this, man. But
I know
this-
where you're going.
But this playbook, man.
Yep.
I mean, come on. If I can't get Odell Beckham Jr. to 1,500, I can at least get Nick Chubb to 15, right?
You guys remember the saying, the only guy that could stop Michael Jordan was Dean Smith at North
Right.
Carolina?
Yeah, like it's-
I'm beginning to feel like the only guy that can stop Nick Chubb is Kevin Stefanski.
He don't never be getting fed like that. It'd be like some games and even his best games, you look up, he had 14 carries, 135.
Not enough.
And you like, but he should have get 200. Like no Cleveland Brown will ever go over 200 yards. In
Not
Stefanski's
with
playbook.
Stefanski. It's
Like
coach.
he'll throw 3 or 4 tight end screens the next 4 plays to make sure that he spreads it out. He's like, yep. Hey, he's like, coach, you know we're not balanced here. All right, well let's get Harrison Bryant 7 catches and some runs in the backfield. We don't have it. It's not even. No, come on, bro. Nick Chubb can be getting 185. You know, if he was in 49ers. You see how they say, look, we can't
Yeah,
get
but they
Debo.
spread it around.
They can't get Debo Samuel to rock. They said we can't get it to him. He said, just hand it.
Give it to him.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't have to throw it to
just
him. Give it to him.
Have him run back here and we'll toss it to him. I don't be seeing that type of urgency with Stefanski. I just don't be seeing it.
Well, it's a new year. We'll see what he does. I think it's.
We might see less of it. If Ford is the guy we think he is, and he jumps into that rotation too, and he's just got everybody on a pitch count, you'll see
Right.
Chubb for a series, then you'll see Hunt for a series, then you're going to see Ford for a series,
this is a
then
nightmare.
maybe you'll see Johnson for a series, and we'll have a lot of shots of Nick Chubb wearing his parka on the sidelines.
In the middle of September. It
I
ain't
better
even-
never see that.
I do think, like, I'm on Twitter every Sunday. There's no such thing as too much Chubb. Like,
Right.
give it.
I agree with
Feed
you.
Nick Chubb. However, what if 4 years from now, 5 years from now, he's still playing at this level? Is it worth it? Is it worth it
I
if
don't
you're
know.
extending his career? Because you are extending his career. You are.
If you operate under the premise that every running back has a total pitch count,
Yeah.
then you're right. You do. But when I watch guys like Emmitt Smith, I'm not sure Nick Chubb isn't Emmitt Smith.
Oh, he's better than him.
But we may never find out.
Well, let me ask you this, guys. Where do you think Nick Chubb ranked last year in rushing attempts per game?
It's higher than you think.
What's your guess?
I'd say he'd be top 20.
17.
I think he's like 10 to 12, top 10 to
ninth.
12. Yeah.
Wow.
It's higher than you think.
That is higher than I got to tell you guys.
Teams just
you
don't
know
run
what?
the ball nearly as much anymore. That's what it comes down
But
to.
again, I
what's
said
that?
this,
Teams just don't run the ball nearly as much.
No,
as they
no,
used
that's
to.
true.
and I can pull
That's
up
true.
the stat. I don't want to do it on camera, but I can pull up the stat that I found last year. Teams that ran the ball, you could average 8 yards a carry,
Yeah.
and you're 500.
Sure.
But if you are in the top, I forget what it was, I think it's 12 or 15 yards per attempt, you're like 32-1. I found it last year, late in the
you've
year.
used that before.
So it doesn't matter how much you run the ball and how great Nick Chubb is. It doesn't guarantee you anything. You have to be able to throw
if
the
it doesn't,
ball.
then why are we hoarding all these running backs? What are we doing?
Yeah, well, that's true. By the way, he was.
And we got no wide receivers, by the way. So everybody on this panel will agree. Oh, it's
Right.
passing lead. You're not winning the Super Bowl without an elite quarterback. We got all the great running backs in the world.
Yeah.
And our wide receiver core looks like a college wide
It's one
receiver
guy.
core.
And by the way, this is the stat you can complain more about. He was 14th in the league in percentage of his team's rushing attempts.
Say it again.
14th in the league in
Okay,
percentage
now
of his
that's
team's rushing
that's
attempts.
egregious. That's
Right.
egregious.
He carried the ball of the rushing attempts by the Browns. He carried it 55% of the time. It should be higher than that.
I
should be
agree.
higher than that.
I agree.
don't
Now,
know that-
granted, you've
like,
got another talented running back there,
Right.
And a lot of teams have that luxury, so
Yeah.
you can kind of understand why he wouldn't be the bell. You know, you're never going to please the Browns fans on this, and I'm in that camp. I'm with you. I can't see enough of Chubb.
Right.
And after watching Ford do what he did Friday night, and I'm telling you, that kind of ability translates. I don't care what the defense is. His instincts are there. His speed is there. When he got the corner on that one play that he ended up getting shoved out at the one, that was a perfect example of him being able to hit that high gear right now and get that corner.
He's better. To me, he's already better than Dearness Johnson. Just on raw
The eye
ability.
test.
Yeah,
Eye
yeah,
test.
Raw ability.
He looked it to me too.
Because
Remember, this was an Alabama guy who transferred to Cincinnati.
Yes.
So the pedigree is there. He's been that guy since high school.
Yeah.
I want to go back. You said Nick Chubb is better than Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, I was not going to let that go.
I mean, McNuggets wanted to pounce on that too.
Go ahead.
I did. That was
drill down on
quite
that.
a take.
Now
Yeah.
here's what I'm saying. Now when you take a look at what the Dallas Cowboys had, right? They had an elite fullback, right? They had
One of the greatest ever.
One of the greatest offensive lines ever assembled.
Ever.
When you look at
Hall of Fame quarterback, Hall of Fame wide receiver.
Larry Allen is probably one of the most dominant physical specimens of all time. You had a passing game, a great number 2 receiver, a number 1 receiver.
The tight end was awesome
Jay
also.
Novacek was. This man, Emmitt Smith, was the 3rd or 4th option. Emmitt Smith was getting the rock and wasn't getting touched, and he was walking through holes. If you look at what other teams had to do, look at Eric Dickerson. He had to get his the hard way. Not Gary Payton, but Walter Payton had to get his the hard way. If Nick Chubb, I put it to you like this. To me, when I see Nick Chubb, he's more physical than Emmitt Smith. He's faster. He has the same level of vision. The only thing that separates those two guys is opportunity and the eras they played in. Emmitt Smith, if you ask
and the elite talent that he has.
But you can't punish him for having good players around
No,
him.
No, but you go on the eye test. I think with running
eye
backs,
test.
you can do that regardless of talent.
Yeah,
Nick Chubb's got to do it longer. Emmitt Smith had a great career.
18,000 career
Not
rushing yards, the
diminishing.
most all-time
Not
ever
if
in
you-
the history of the sport.
if you would ask somebody, top 10 running backs of all time, it'd be hard-pressed to get him in there.
Well, he is the leader.
He's the lead. But it would be.
By the way, if you look at yards per attempt career-wise, now to be fair, Nick Chubb hasn't played that long.
Well, nobody's better than Nick.
He's 3rd in the history of the NFL.
That's what I'm saying.
Ahead of Jim Brown in rushing attempts, yards per rushing attempt.
And to me, that's the apples-to-apples stat that I want to look at.
So
Amongst running backs, by the way, because Michael Vick is first all-time. But
Yeah.
Nick
but
Chubb,
that's
to
not fair.
me, could carry a team all the way to the AFC Championship game. If you had a guy that could not make mistakes.
But to Tim's point, just a couple of minutes ago, he said the way the league is built today, if
Yeah.
you're just a run offense,
You can't win.
defenses will take that
Here
away.
it is. This is late last season. I looked this up. Since 2018, 24 teams have run for better than 8 yards a carry. They're 12-12. Running 8 yards a carry in the NFL, you're 12-12. If you average 12 yards per pass since 2018, 32-1. You've got to throw the ball.
You
to
got to.
You got it, yes.
But if
Yes.
you ain't got a quarterback,
Browns
you
can't
got
win
to
a
do
Super
what
Bowl
you
with
can.
Jacoby Brissett. We got to wrap our heads around that.
No, they're not.
They probably can't win a Super Bowl
No.
with Jimmy Garoppolo either. But
He's taken him to the Super Bowl. He's gotten him
And
to
he
the
got
game.
damn close to winning it.
in
Yeah.
a perfect situation,
Yeah.
with a perfect team around him.
And listen, I don't think Jimmy G's elite, but I think he's an upgrade over what they have.
But I'm not trading for him unless Deshaun's coming back. That's what I'm doing.
On the premise that you need an elite quarterback to win today, I disagree with you and with Tim. I think if you have an all-time great defense, like the Ravens had.
Right, but I don't think that exists anymore.
Well, we don't know. Somebody's going to have an elite defense again. I mean, somebody's going to have
I don't
a
think we'll
defense.
ever see a defense like that again.
Well, maybe
the rules hinder it. The
Yeah.
rules prevent it
I
from
know.
happening.
I know it does, and it's
Yeah.
hard to say. ever, but I'm just here to tell you that there will be another team that wins a Super Bowl without an elite quarterback. It's going to happen.
Maybe,
Jay,
but
look at this.
But that's the anomaly and not the.
But I don't think we're in that.
Absolutely, Bull.
Yeah,
but to say that it can't happen, I think that's too strong of a statement.
We just saw it. The team the Cleveland Browns have right now, in my opinion, is comparable or not even a little bit better than the Philadelphia Eagles that won.
But here's the problem. What every time
4 years ago.
Everybody,
so it wasn't like that was ancient history.
Yeah, no. But here's the problem when everybody brings this up. The Kansas City Chiefs have a great roster.
Sure.
Yep.
The LA Chargers have a great roster.
Yep.
The Denver Broncos have a great roster. The Buffalo Bills have a great roster.
Yeah.
The Bengals have a great roster. The AFC and those teams have elite quarterbacks.
Sure, they do.
Which the Browns don't right now.
Right.
So, yes, the Browns have one of the best non-quarterback rosters in the league, but so do all these other teams in the AFC.
Right. But you're saying that when you say that, then you're saying that no team will ever win another Super Bowl based strictly on their defense.
I say probably not, but if they are, it's going to be a unique circumstance. Like, I think in the NFC, a team could get to the Super Bowl that way.
Sure.
Right now.
Well, the Eagles won one.
I think
without an elite quarterback.
Yeah,
I think
yes,
but although Foles played out of his mind in that postseason.
He did, but he's not an elite quarterback.
Certainly not. But this AFC right now is so top heavy with good teams that I don't think you can win that way in the AFC.
And to your point of that Foles played out of his mind.
Right.
So you've got to have a guy that
play out of his mind.
Yes. So I'll give you for last year.
Yeah.
When Baker beat the AFC champion. Baker's not an elite quarterback.
He's not.
Baker spit all over the Bengals defense in that game.
Right. But
can
you win that way 3 games in a row to get to the Super Bowl?
I don't know that you'll need to win that 3 games in a row. Maybe the defense will get you past the first round of the playoffs.
I just think it's hard.
Bengals did this kind of, they kind of squeaked by Tennessee. Okay, they got them.
Well, they squeaked by Kansas City too.
But Joe Burrow had to be good in that game, right? And then when you look at the Bengals, I say, well, what do they have that was elite? They have a really good pass rusher. They got an elite quarterback. And they had an elite wide receiver.
Wide receivers are elite.
And so
Joe Mixon is the top 10 running back.
So when they got there, I said, but damn, I would have never picked them over those other teams. But it just goes to show you if you can win it a few different ways, if you can get it in the dance.
That's the key. You've got to have, in today's NFL, you've got to have a team that can change its formula like Belichick has. You know what? My defense needs to be great today.
Yes,
sure. I need a great performance out of the defense.
And
next week, Brady, you're going to have to step up.
We're
right.
We're
going to need you today.
And Joe Burrow was good in the playoffs. He wasn't playing his best football. A lot of that was the offensive line was so bad. It wasn't his fault.
He had great moments, though, man.
He had great moments. However, do the Bengals get to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo? No chance. No chance.
You're gonna. The odds indicate you're going to need
the great quarterback.
There's always an anomaly.
I agree with that.
But in this era, I don't think,
especially in this AFC,
the only way you're going to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC, to Bull's point, you got to go the length of the field with no time left to beat Kansas City.
Well, look
to
at
beat
Buffalo and Kansas City.
That's exactly where I was going with it.
I mean, that game was one of the all-time great football games I have ever seen.
Right.
And you know what I was thinking the whole time I'm watching it?
We can't do that.
We're screwed.
We ain't got that.
We're screwed.
And that's ultimately why they had to trade for Watson. And they did.
Yes, you're right. But also then you think about the other quarterbacks in the division that can do that weren't playing in that game. I'm telling you, I think Herbert this year is going to be the guy that everybody's kind of rubbing their eyes on going, holy crap. We undersold this guy.
These teams are loaded.
I think Herbert is going to eventually be the guy that rises to the top.
Everybody loves Herbert. I think he's gotten way.
I love Herbert.
He's great, but he's been overhyped considering he hasn't played a playoff game yet.
Well, I blame his head coach for that. His head coach absolutely fumbled that.
I don't know. I love the aggressiveness. We could argue about that all day long. But still, he's a great talent, and they've got great talent around him. And so does Denver. You looked at me like I was crazy when I said Denver.
Well, the only thing with Denver is I use that definition of elite as I want to say, like, if you're in the top 10%. I think you're elite if you're in the top 10%.
Yeah.
If you're not in the top 10%, you're getting a B on the bell curve.
Yeah.
So you got to be an A if you're going to be elite. And so if on that definition, there's 3 quarterbacks that are elite if you go to the top 10%.
Okay.
And I'm not willing to put Russ in that category anymore.
I think if you're a top 10 quarterback, you can win with a top 10 quarterback. If the rest of the team is really good. If you're in the lower end of the top 10, Russell Wilson
but to me that's not elite. Top 10.
No, I don't think Russell Wilson
third of the league.
Right.
Yeah,
but I don't think Russell Wilson's elite, but I think he's very good, and I love their backfield, which is right there with the Browns.
Yeah, I like their
Javonte
backfield
Williams is a star, and Melvin Gordon's underrated.
I just look
They've
at
got
their
good
division.
receivers.
I look at their division.
Right, but I'm saying
you got to play the Chargers twice.
Tough.
You got to play
the Bills are in the best spot because I don't think their division's any good.
I'm gonna be
the
honest.
Jets stink.
Yeah.
The Raiders.
I don't buy the double. And the Raiders are really good.
The Raiders are much improved.
It's loaded.
Much
It is an
improved.
absolute.
And we're all
mind
ignoring
blow.
the Ravens, who are going to be good if Lamar Jackson stays healthy.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's,
You're right.
that's just why.
Is the West the best division in football? The AFC West.
Yeah,
It's not close.
It could.
not close.
I could wind up being the North.
The
The North is
could
good.
wind up
I mean,
being
there's
the North.
question marks in the North. We don't know about Baltimore. We think we do. But
Hold on.
Pittsburgh's
Jay,
a question mark.
Let me end this debate for you real quick. In the
It's
AFC
not a
West,
debate for me.
No, I'm just saying.
It's not a debate for me. I say it's the West, hands down.
There's Mahomes. There's Russell Wilson.
Yep.
There's Justin Herbert, and there's Derek Carr. And in the North, there's possibly Mitchell Trubisky / Kenny Pickett. There's possibly Jacoby Brissett / Josh Rosen / Josh Dobbs / Jimmy Garoppolo / whoever, and that ends the discussion right
Yeah.
now.
No, you're right.
For right now.
I'm counting Watson in that.
But
I
next
probably
year, if you
shouldn't
have
be.
Watson and Burrow and Trubisky, ends up being the guy that Aditi and a lot of people in Pittsburgh
Pickett.
thinks that
I mean,
he can be, or Pickett. And obviously, if Jackson returns to the guy that we think he can be in Baltimore, then I'm saying, okay, AFC North, AFC West, it's kind of a toss-up.
Yeah.
But my God, I would not want to be in the West right now.
Can I ask you guys a question real quick about the topic we're on?
Yeah.
Make a prediction for me. What is the least amount of passing attempts the Browns call this year in a win? Are we going to see a game where Brissett throws 12 passes and the Browns win?
No, not that.
I would
not
say
that low.
17.
I would say 17 and 19.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it's under 20. 20 would be my number.
I could see them win one game in the teens.
Well, if
One.
it's December and it's
It's
30
a freak
below.
game. You're playing.
Yeah, there's always that possibility.
There's the one freak game.
40
where
mile
you
an
can
hour
see it.
winds on the
But
lakefront.
you're not winning many games that way.
But I will say this. I might be a throwback, but if they
Yeah.
can turn it ugly, right, and somehow they can get past this and get to a point where, I don't know, Deshaun Watson does come back, and they're playing here in December and January, that is the ultimate equalizer to me.
But you can win that way against the bad teams. You can win that way against mediocre. You can't consistently win against good teams that way.
Well, here's what I'm saying.
Especially good teams that play in cold weather.
Yes,
If you
that's
get,
true.
I'd rather play Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and Derek Carr. All of them, I would like to play them here. Like Josh Allen, it might be a wash, but if you telling me that I can get them here, and I got a running game, and I got a defense, and I can get after a quarterback, I got a chance here.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I think the Bills are nearly a shoo-in to be the 1 seed because of their divisions. I mean, other people might like New England and Miami more than I do. I don't buy either of those
I
teams.
never sell New England short. I mean,
But-
they're not gonna win
And
the
the
division.
South stinks, but whoever wins that division, I don't think is very good.
Think about
No.
it. And we ain't even talked about the Titans or the Colts, and they aren't bad. The Titans consistently make the playoffs every year.
Yeah, but you know what? You'd pick them in the West last.
Yes. Well,
Maybe
one
you
of those
pick
teams
Denver.
has to make
Maybe
the
you
playoffs.
pick them.
though.
One of them got to make it.
Right, but think between the North and the West, at most you can have is 5 playoff teams. So 3 of those 8 teams are not making the playoffs. And if Watson doesn't play the whole season, the Browns are probably
Browns are one of
the
those
3.
teams that are not making the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm
probably.
afraid you're right.
Yeah.
I'm afraid you're
Well,
right.
it looks
yeah.
like we just talked ourselves all the way down.
All right, we'll see you in 2023. Thanks for watching, everybody.
home. Woo!
Now, the good thing about this is why I love sports. If you pull tapes or you pull columns through the years, the one thing I love doing this with the most is the draft. You go back and you read
my
Sports
God,
Illustrated.
yeah.
I used to always save the Sports Illustrated, and I would go back 6-7 years, and I would read the post-draft.
Oh,
and,
man.
And you know
The draft grades.
you're talking about guys that staked their careers on the idea that Peyton Manning was not going to be as good
Right.
as Ryan Leaf
Leaf,
as
yeah.
a professional. And when you read that, you're like, oh my God, that's cringeworthy. I can never believe another word I hear fall out of Mel Kiper's mouth.
Well, that's why
again.
That's why I love freezing cold takes on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Because
so great.
He's
It's so
he's
great.
gotten me a couple of times, which I love. I think it's
Has he
hilarious.
really?
Oh,
Yeah. One time it was for a Brandon Weeden tweet because I thought Brandon Weeden was going to be really good.
Oh. That is a
I was
terrible
convinced
tweet.
Brandon Weeden was going to be good.
Have you been catfished by a player? What's the player that you thought that was
It's a great question, G. Bush.
so
Yeah,
good,
it is a good one.
that you thought you put your reputation on? You was putting the
that's a
cape on,
good one.
and he
I have a bad
catfished you.
one.
He showed up 2 years later. You like, bro, I can't believe I went that hard for that man.
All right, I died
Anthony
on
Bennett.
No.
Oh my God!
That was Lima.
I died on the hill for Mike Miller when he came to the Cavs for that 1 year. Not
yeah.
quite what you were saying,
Yeah.
but I kept saying, "Listen, he's going to win you a playoff game. He's
yeah,
going
right,
to
you
win
did
you a
say
playoff game."
Yeah.
And one day he was leaving the facility, and he's like, "Don't give up on me yet." I was like, "I got you," and he just let me die on that
Yeah,
hill.
you died on that
He
hill.
was
Yours is
awful.
Brandon Weeden, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think he was going to be a superstar, but I thought he was. But I thought he was going to be a good player.
I'm kind of between you two
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I didn't think he was going to be a good player. I thought he was going to be a long-time solution for the Browns quarterback
Yes.
question. I thought Brady Quinn was that guy. I did. I really thought Brady Quinn was going to have an 8 to 10 year career
Yeah.
here where he played in some playoff games.
Mine's is probably the most disturbing and the worst. Of all
Just
time.
don't say Johnny Manziel and you're okay.
That's
well,
mine.
Kellen Winslow is worse.
Oh.
Yeah,
A lot of guys thought Kellen Winslow was going to be
I
that
thought-
At
dude.
least he had a good year.
I
had
thought
one
he
good
was.
year.
I thought he was the next. Then he got hurt on that bike, and then he was never the same. He lost 2-3 steps, and then there's later on in his career,
went
you
to
already
prison.
you went to prison now.
He's still in prison, right?
Mike thought Johnny Manziel was going to be good.
So let's
I
go
do
back
too.
in time machine real quick.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I was in college, I started a blog with a couple friends, and we ended up getting bought out by Fox Sports. It got pretty big.
Wow.
Look at you.
And I did a whole series on why Johnny Manziel should be the first pick in the draft. I convinced.
And
this
Fox
was-
Sports still bought it, huh?
Yes, they did. And
Wow.
this was before I never stepped in Texas. I had no ties to A&M.
What did you see in him that made you think that he's
that stupid
dude?
it factor that you can't really write about that
Yeah.
I tried to write thousands and thousands of words about.
Hey.
Yeah, I just thought there was something different about him that was going to translate to the NFL, and I broke down. This is when I thought I was cool. I could break down the game film, watch the throws from different angles, and he torched Alabama, and I was like, all right, he can do it
I'll
against
tell
those
you that
defenses.
that to me
Yeah.
was in the check. That checked the box of he could do that because when you do it against Alabama, that's a
Right.
different level. All those
Tuscaloosa.
guys
I
are going to
was
play in the
in
league
Tuscaloosa.
in Tuscaloosa.
I was down on him the whole time leading up to the draft, and then the week before, I talked myself into him.
You didn't talk Jimmy into it. You weren't the homeless guy, were you?
No. But I was excited. But I was excited when they drafted him. I got caught up in the
I
moment.
was too.
I was a huge scamzel. I was because he's the only white dude I've ever seen run away from black dudes. Like
what?
No, he's the only
he's
white
right.
guy
He did.
that I've seen.
Run away.
In the
Yeah.
SEC,
Yeah.
get the football and be running like a little kid. And I'm like, bro, he's running away from LSU and Alabama and going to that. He had like 1,500 on the ground, just doing this, moving around.
I thought Bradley Zimmer was going to be good.
I thought Matt Laporta was going to be good.
Oh, Matt LaPorta.
Yeah, well, I think we all bought it on Laporta.
Yeah.
You know, to your point about Manziel, and
Yeah.
I was always concerned about his size.
Yeah.
But the way he played, I thought he could overcome it. I'm still convinced that if you could have taken another person's personality and put it into Johnny Manziel, and I'm talking about a guy with unrivaled work ethic, and he didn't take this as a big joke, I think he could have stuck around for a while
Yeah.
longer.
If you would take Baker Mayfield's mentality and put it in Johnny Manziel's body, I think Johnny Manziel would have worked. Because Johnny Manziel, the difference between Baker and Johnny,
Baker's kind of Johnny Light.
No, but
With his attitude, and he doesn't want to listen to anything or anybody.
But
Yeah.
the thing about Johnny is Johnny don't care about.
He don't care about anything.
Nothing.
No, he's a
He
bum.
don't care
Yeah,
about
but- and neither did-
football. None of that.
No.
he
he's a
cared
bum.
about partying.
That's it.
And
That's
then after he washed out, now he wants to be a football player. And it doesn't work that way.
Right,
You were
right.
given a gift. You
Yeah.
wasted it. You don't get a fourth chance. I mean, he went to the CFL. He did all of that nonsense. I just would have loved to have seen what would have happened if Johnny came into the league and said, I'm cutting ties with all my boys. I've got no more entourage. I'm not going to Vegas with a disguise. I'm going to practice my ass off. I'm going to work harder than anybody else in the facility. And I'm going to maximize my gift.
tell me
What he could have been.
Here's whose personality and soul you'd want in him. Colt McCoy. Right? Look, Colt McCoy
Yeah, Colt got more
doesn't
out
have
of-
much talent.
No, he got way more out of his
Look
body
how
than
long
he
he's
should
been in
have.
the league.
I know, it's insane.
Even
He'll
Johnny,
be a backup for 20 years
even
probably.
though Johnny didn't care about nothing, think
Yeah.
what he
Been
did
one
against
for over 10.
Tennessee Titans game. He single-handedly won the Titans.
Played that one good game. That was a game.
It was a great game.
Should have stayed out of the high
Nuggets,
rollers
you have
room.
some traffic you got to take care of?
Yeah, we got to
What's
do top 5 here, which
Okay.
leads us into our next topic here, which I think Bull will love a lot. And as always, our Ultimate 5 is brought to us by our favorites at Roundstone Insurance. Roundstone offers a better alternative for affordable quality health care for more than a decade. Roundstone Insurance has been saving small and mid-sized businesses money up to 20%. Yeah, 20%. Contact us today to learn how you can get great health care benefits your employees will love and save some money, too.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the Roundstone.
You sold that. I didn't know where it came from. I was trying to get the reference, but you did. You sold it. I'll give you credit for selling
I
it.
put a seatbelt on next time. I know where you were taking us.
He was coming after
I'm
you.
going to punch him in the head.
No, you just missed him.
Jason was like,
We got another fan submission for a jingle. Eddie sent us another one. We'll play
Eddie,
tomorrow, by
Eddie's the
way.
man, man. That
Okay.
one was so good.
Well,
Did you guys
Elvis-
see that one last week that
No.
he did?
it was a good one.
I didn't see
We'll
it.
play 2 Eddies tomorrow. We'll play both the Eddies tomorrow.
Yeah.
We got a fan that's like making videos?
He did a
Making
song
jingles.
for PCC last week, which was awesome.
Come on. No,
It
Wanna
was
hear it real
great.
quick?
Hey,
We got it right
listen.
now.
I would love to hear
Let's
it.
take,
Yeah,
let's
let's play
take
this.
Eddie. This
He's
is last
phenomenal.
Make airfoils make me feel royal, trust me. Ooh-wee, I want PCC.
Hey, that's
All
it.
right.
Hey,
Is that the best?
hey,
That's
listen.
okay.
Hey,
That
I'm
was
gonna tell
great.
you what.
Jay's underwhelmed.
This is the only place where you can advertise, and we'll give you a free jingle. We got all. We don't even do the jingles. They do the jingles. Come on now. You're not getting that nowhere. Come on with these
And he
billboards.
sent us
We're
a
ready to
second
go.
one. We got an Elvis. We'll play it tomorrow.
Nice.
I like
It's
that.
an Elvis, a little Elvis riff.
For
Yeah.
which sponsor?
I have to go back and look, but I have listened
Can't
to
remember,
it.
so it really made quite an impression on
By the
you.
way, doesn't
wasn't-
Eddie
it
look a lot like
wasn't-
Clay, who worked at the radio
Yes,
station, or
yes,
used to?
yes.
But
he
if I
does.
see this guy singing alone in a car in a parking lot next to me, I'm getting the hell out of there. I
No, Eddie's the man.
Eddie's
a
awesome.
good
all
guy.
right,
Eddie's a
Eddie,
good
Love
guy.
Eddie.
we love you, Eddie.
All right, so today's top 5 is things going on in Cleveland right now that aren't getting talked about enough. Let's start
All
with number
5 should be the Guardians.
The Guardians can't lose. It is
How's that
not
5?
getting talked about.
I know.
No, just,
Why is
Bull,
that not
trust
number
me.
1?
Bull, trust me.
All right, I'll trust you.
me.
I'll trust you.
All right, let's go to number 4. Josh Dobbs is a rocket scientist. And that legitimately needs to be talked about more
I no
often.
longer,
Anthony
I no longer
Craig-Crafton.
trust you because that's terrible.
I like
let's
the
go
fact
back
he's
to
got the
number 3.
Rockets. Shout out. Did Anthony do that?
All right, there we
The
go.
Guardians
will not
lose.
All right, that's number 3.
That
That's
is
gonna be
not
number
being
2
talked
or number
about
1
enough.
too.
That's true.
And is that Anthony's face?
Did you Photoshop yourself on that, Anthony?
No, that's not.
Hedges.
That's
That
Hedges.
looks like Anthony.
Well,
You know
look-
what? We're
it
on to
look
something,
kinda like
guys.
you.
We need Anthony to get a Hedges jersey, throw
Yeah.
some
They
eye
look
black
similar.
on, put cooking oil in your hair,
Yeah.
and you're Austin Hedges.
And he's batting as well as Austin Hedges, too.
His average is 175
Yeah.
points below Austin Hedges.
There he is.
There he is.
This is Earl, by the
Anthony
way.
Austin
new guy.
Hedges look like.
And there's
What's up?
Earl
Hey,
in the
Earl,
house.
Earl's the new guy. Let's welcome Earl to the program.
Oh, this way from
Hey.
but this is Earl Maldine. He's
What
our
up,
new
Earl?
AP.
Earl's already lost in the soup because he said that Jimmy Garoppolo's not any better than Jacoby Brissett. I saw that on I don't know if he did it on the show or
Listen,
on Twitter.
Earl's coming
he was
hot
lost
with
on
opinions
that
in
one,
the group
Earl.
chat already. He did not wait till day 1 to start throwing
Yeah,
the
right.
opinions out.
No, I know he does it. I think during the game on Friday, Earl, I laughed so hard when I saw this. I think he said something about, looks like number 10 can't catch. I said Earl's going to fit in really well with this crew.
No doubt.
We are excited to have Earl. You guys will see him do
Welcome,
some stuff
Earl.
soon. So
Welcome.
Welcome, Earl. All right, we got to finish the top 5 here.
Yeah.
Number 2. That's C.D. Osman's name is pronounced Jetty Osman. That makes no sense. We don't talk about it enough. That is the most
What do you mean it
singular-
doesn't make sense?
It makes
it's a
no
different
sense.
He comes from a different country.
This man Jetty, I've never like he's the guy who flies under the radar. You know the guy to be at work and you be like, man, we get bonuses, raises every year based on the team, right? And he just be here for 5-10 years. You like, dang, Jetty still can get that bonus.
Question for you guys. If you took his picture and you went out on the streets of Cleveland and you showed it to 100 Clevelanders, how many people tell you who that is?
20.
I was going to say 27, 28.
I would say 5.
I'm going closer to Bull.
Yeah.
I'm saying 10. 10.
I mean, the only way, if you showed him full length, it might
no,
help.
if you give his
If you
context
just
away
showed
with the
his
uniform,
face,
yeah, just
then
his face.
no
Yeah.
chance.
Is this Antonio Banderas? No.
Antonio.
And are you guys ready for the number 1 thing
I know what number
happening
1
in
is.
Cleveland that people aren't talking about?
Yeah.
The Guardians can't lose.
The Guardians cannot lose.
Damn right!
They're in first place. 2.5 games up on the Twins. Listen, we know they're happening. We know they exist. It is not intentional. We do talk about them.
Yeah.
They deserve to be talked about more. And
They
Bull,
do.
I'm going to let you start here.
Guys,
Why do people need to go out and support this team more than they are right now?
you know, there's multiple reasons. Okay, first of all, they're a I don't want to say great because they're not great. They're a very good team. You know, as fans, we're always talking about, oh, I want the guys to be unselfish. I want them to be a team. I want them to love each other. Don't we get a warm, fuzzy feeling when you feel like the players on your team love each other? It always makes you feel good. You know, people are like, well, I want a big name and I want this. I understand all the reasons that the people are mad at the Guardians. I get it. But those reasons are irrelevant right now. It's August. They're overachieving. They're playing way better than the Twins and White Sox, who have significantly higher payrolls. And they got, 48 games left, I believe, on the season? Guys, I think they got a great chance to win this division. Now, there's some tough runs coming up, and they've been an up-and-down team all year, so they're due for another tough stretch. It probably will happen. I'm a little antsy about this road trip where they go to San Diego and Seattle. I don't love that road trip. Although they're playing against Clevenger's pitching that first game, so maybe they'll smack him around. He's been the Padres'
You guys
worst
see
pitcher.
Clevenger's comments on the suspension?
On Deshaun Watson's?
No.
was about to say.
On the Tatis suspension.
Oh, I did not see his comments. on that.
Slammed him.
80
Oh, yeah,
games.
you know what? I did, now that you
Slammed
say
him.
it.
Slam Tatis.
And made a comment that it's about time, like he needs to grow up and start.
Yeah, Clevenger's not the guy to say
Well,
that.
listen,
Yeah,
what
right.
I said was, I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, a year ago, you put all of your teammates in jeopardy by sneaking out on COVID.
I know, yeah, that was.
And I was shocked that
And
anybody.
he sucked in San Diego. He's
Because
been their
usually
worst starter.
guys don't come out and say anything
Right.
negative about that. They're like, yeah, it is what it is. But, I mean,
was-
Clevenger came out swinging.
He doesn't
True.
care. He
No,
was
I know
really
he
outspoken
doesn't.
on the Astros,
Like,
too.
if Machado.
Yes, he was very
If
hard.
Machado would have said it, you would have been like, okay, you know, he's kind of a mentor to Tatis. I get that.
Yeah, but Clevenger's saying, I don't think he has the cachet in that clubhouse. to
No
do that.
way. No
It'd
way
be
he has the
interesting to see
cachet.
how
I
that
would've-
plays out now.
He still has time to bury him. Hey, listen, you're a fourth. Hey, listen. Matter of fact, we might need to option you down, dog. You can't be talking out of turn. You ain't even.
Nah,
really got
Clevenger's
the-
out of line
No.
with those comments. But getting back to the Guardians, guys, they are truly, as individuals, you don't look at them and you say, at least what they've proven in the big leagues to this point, you're like, I don't know if there's enough guys to be a playoff team. But they play so well as a team, and you don't think about that with baseball as much.
Yeah.
And they've got key guys, like Bieber's pitching his best baseball of the year right
His
now.
last 4 games, he's looked like Shane Bieber.
Right? McKenzie's been phenomenal almost the whole season. Clase is absolutely phenomenal at the back end of the bullpen. Karinchak is given, although he couldn't pitch in Toronto because he won't get freaking
That was
vaccinated.
ridiculous.
But, anyway, but he's been great since coming back.
And there was concern about Karinchak with.
Of course there was.
after
to be.
last year, with the spin.
Well,
and
the
the
timing
last
of his
year after that.
decline
Yeah.
came
Absolutely.
absolutely in sync with when the spin started
And
going
think about
away.
this, guys. They don't have much power. They have 3 guys with double digits homers. 3 guys.
Well, it's
know.
just the way that the organization sort of reshaped the way that they scout.
They get on base. They run the bases. You got 5 guys with double-digit steals, which is very uncommon in this baseball. And their middle infield has been great.
And to your
Jimenez
point,
and Rosario.
they're 61 and 50. What else do you want?
They might win 90 games.
So you would go if Frankie was still at short and Clevenger was in the rotation?
Why would you want Frankie
Like,
in this organization, by
Now,
the way?
Frankie's playing well. We don't need to bash
But
kill
no,
Frankie.
no,
He's
no.
having a good season.
He's-
But the guys they got are doing great.
Doing better than compare the numbers.
Yeah, my whole point is, like,
Yeah.
you hear from people, well, they don't ever retain their stars. They're winning. What
And
else
they
do
did
you
just retain Ramirez.
What else? And they did. That was
Yeah.
an exception. That's not going to become the
No,
norm.
I know.
And he did them a huge solid
he
by
did.
giving them a home
So-
team discount.
since
Oh,
I
by
got
the
a-
way, he's not even playing that great right now.
we got all
No,
three.
he
Of y'all,
hasn't.
we got all 3 of y'all in here. Let me
Yeah.
ask you this question to prove. I don't even think it's winning or losing at this point. If the Guardians won the World Series this year, what significance would that play on attendance next year?
Oh, I think they would come back.
It would be better, but they wouldn't sell
they're
out.
not-
Guys, they're
They're not gonna sell
25th in the league.
455 in a row.
They are 25th in the league.
So
They're
how-
averaging 16,000 fans
So it would go
for home games.
25th. It would go up to what? 19.
20th, 15th,
I would say middle of the
maybe.
pack best.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I don't think
Yeah,
it's... And
it's
you know
And that's
what?
after the World Series.
Well, look at you've got a test case. In 16, they went to the World Series and they should have won.
Yep.
And the next year they came back and they had another great team and they still finished 24th or 20th.
They had a better team.
They did. I thought they were better positioned to win it in 17.
And that was with Edwin, and attendance did bump. It did go up.
But not hugely.
not to the level
it didn't go up to where you'd want them to think they're a top 10 attendance team.
Because of the city and the amount of money in the just not even just the city, in the suburbs, whatever, we understand it's never going to be a top 10 baseball market. But there's no reason
2 decades ago. It was
right, but there's no reason that this team should be 25th
No.
because they can. I've screamed about the payroll. I've screamed about guys a million times. I get it. I'm annoyed by the owner. But the bottom line is this team is consistently competitive. They're consistently competitive.
Over the last decade, they've done more with less
but they
than
still,
anybody in the American League.
I don't want to bring this up.
They still should have spent money to improve the team. Because, by the way, they're only a half game back at Toronto for the third best record in the American League.
I don't want to bring this up. I don't like to be that guy, but here's the thing. We told you, if you're a business owner, you own a team, and you said, if I bring you a World Series, it's only giving me 3 spots on attendance, I'm running a business. At what point in time would they say, do you legitimately think that they would take the team and go somewhere else? They're
not doing that. We know they can't do that.
They just signed an extension.
They're not going
lease.
anywhere.
Right.
And the whole
there's worse markets than ours.
Well, look at Oakland. Oakland's drawing fewer than 10,000
Now,
fans
they're
a game.
horrible, to be fair.
They're horrible, and their stadium is dumb.
Right, but even when they were good, they don't draw.
But they're averaging 9,000. There are minor league teams that average more than 9,000 fans a game.
Look at Tampa Bay. I don't know what Tampa's averaging this year. I haven't looked.
Tampa, hold on.
But,
Tampa is also.
They're always near the bottom.
They're 28.
Miami?
They're averaging 14,000 a game.
And they're good.
And Tampa, I will tell you, from living there for 5 years,
it's in a bad
part
location.
of that time they were good.
Right.
It's in St. Pete. People in Tampa feel you need a passport to go over the bridge.
Yeah.
Like east side, west side here.
Worse. The mistake they made in Tampa was, 1, not having a retractable roof, and 2, not being in Tampa.
And they've tried. I know they've tried getting a stadium in Ybor City around that
part
area.
of the problem, it's just tough. Southern, Florida is just not. The people down there, they root for the Yankees, they root for the Red Sox.
You know what, though? I'll tell you, from living there for 5 years, this is why I disagree with that.
Okay.
That is one of the best NHL markets in the country. And they didn't know what hockey was when the Lightning came around. They didn't. But when the Lightning consistently won, and I'm going back to their first Stanley Cup in 2004, after that, you couldn't get a ticket to a home game.
Yeah,
and
the Rays consistently do well.
The Rays do well. The Rays, this is why I'm saying it's 2 things. On a beautiful sunny day where there's a high likelihood it's going to rain later in the day, the last thing I wanted to do when I was in Tampa, and I loved living in a city with a major league team, was drive across the bridge, 30 minutes, and then sit indoors on a beautiful sunny day.
That's true.
Put a retractable roof stadium in Ybor City, which, by the way, big Cuban population, nobody loves baseball more than the folks in Ybor City. Yep. You would see them automatically, in my view, you would see them crack the top 10 in attendance. If they had the quality of organization that they do now, they would draw fans and they would go to the games.
And I would argue they're the only team in baseball that's done more with less than the Guardians.
They're right there. We've talked about this.
They've had a lower payroll than the Guardians every year for the past decade.
I know. I probably am too close to some of the guys with Cleveland, and I just love what they've done. I think there are 28 teams right now that would trade front offices with the Guardians.
Oh, yeah.
Their
front office is phenomenal.
It's pitiful and embarrassing that the best run team in town is the one that's viewed third on the list publicly.
It's sad.
It's pitiful.
It breaks my heart like nothing else. I don't know what the answer is. I honestly don't. I don't know if it's owner fatigue. I'm sure that there is something that, and I know this. I don't know what the research is. If anybody's done a real research project on this,
study.
But I'm telling you, the number of people that I hear from that say, I don't care if they're the Yankees record. They're not the Indians anymore, and I'm not supporting them.
That's part of my final take, and it was last week, too.
You can scoff at it and say, well, to get over it.
Yeah.
I say the same thing, Bull. But it's reality.
Yeah.
And also, I think the number of season ticket holders that I talk to that are no longer season ticket holders, and I asked them why not, they said, we weren't even talked to by the owner. We were told by the owner that we're changing the name and here's what it is. There was no, before McDonald's rolls out the Filet-O-Fish, they put it in test markets and see how it's going to be perceived. And then they look at it and say, people don't give a crap about this sandwich.
Right.
Or they find out, Taco Bell finds out that their taco pizza, when they canceled it and took it off the menu, they found out that, oh my God, people love this and they're really hot at us. And guess what Taco Bell's doing now? They're putting the taco pizza back on their menu.
Yeah.
And
to,
so
to your point,
you can't ignore that.
But those fans would have been mad no matter what.
No,
it
but
was
I
changed
think
to, don't you
there would have been a little bit more of an embrace had there been a contest to name the
They
team.
should have done that. I agree.
Here's the fun.
I agree.
And I talked to them about that. They said we had so much difficulty with trademarking and with being able to find names that were available. And
I
don't-
get that.
And I don't know if they felt like that. But when the Timberwolves
there was
came,
always the option of keeping it the Indians.
there was. Yeah.
The Braves haven't caved. The Chiefs didn't cave.
Yeah.
The Seminoles haven't
But
caved.
once they came out and said we're going to examine the name, you knew it was over.
Well,
they
yeah,
weren't
I
going to
felt
come
like
to the
it
end
was
of that
I
process.
thought it was a fait accompli when they got the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And there was the wink
Yeah.
and a nut, and, you know, they were like, hey, you know, we're going to get the All-Star game, but you're going to
But
drop
the
this
bottom
name.
line on
And the
all
Braves
this-
then pulled the swervy nerve and said, yeah, we're good. We'll take the All-Star
bottom-
game, and we're still the Braves.
I think the bottom line is a
and then
lot.
baseball said, yeah, oh yeah? Well, we're moving we're going to take the All-Star game to the whitest city in America.
Yeah.
To me, if you don't root for them because of the name change, you were a bad fan to begin with. That's my opinion of it. Because, and I think people may, just like I hear a lot of people say, well, we were only mad at LeBron because of the way he left, not because he left. I think that's an excuse.
You may be right. You
Yeah.
can label them bad fan if you
Yeah.
want. It doesn't change the fact that they're not a fan anymore.
Agreed.
And the bottom line
Yes.
is when you're a business,
Yeah.
that's why when I worked at ESPN, I was always so uncomfortable. And there were a number of us there that were uncomfortable. That the company was okay with all of its commentators entering the political space. They learned from their mistake. They learned, but they learned the hard way. They kept saying, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay that our people have political opinions. What they didn't take into account was we are in a space in America now where if you disagree with someone politically, they don't want anything to do with you. And I don't know how we got here, but that's where we are. Now, ESPN, after Pitaro came in, the first thing he said to his new employees, guys, we're out of the political business. We can't afford to go there. It'd be like if you were selling lemonade and next to your lemonade sign you said, I love Trump. 50% of the people aren't going to come and buy lemonade from you. Why would you do that? Why would you automatically alienate 50% of your potential fan base? It's not a smart move.
I love the fact that we have differing opinions and we say them, and people still watch.
But here's what we don't know, and here's what ESPN found out. Not the same number of people watched. And here's what happened with ESPN. At the time where cord cutting was a thing, they did multiple studies, and they said, what's the worst case scenario on cord cutting? Where would we be? They were 8 million subs below that.
Wow.
Below their worst case scenario. And when they do research, they don't ask 500 people.
Right.
Okay? They go deep. So and that's why ESPN, through the years, one thing I can tell you is they spend a ton of money on research. Most of it they employ. Some of it they ignore. They almost always come back to the stuff that they ignored and said, we got to pay attention to this. It's too big. And ultimately what they found was it was, by every measure, hurting their business model financially, not to the tunes of millions, but to the tunes of tens of millions.
I don't know that changing the name is a political thing, but
one thing
it became political.
One thing we can't ignore is final takes.
Oh yeah,
No.
good
G-Bush, thank you for that segue. It is
Yes.
time. We'll update the good bet, bad bet standings without going over them, but we got to get the final takes. We got 8 minutes.
Oh,
Guys,
I'm dying to see where we are on the good bet, bad bet.
Bull's way ahead of everybody.
Yeah, I'm dominating.
Because I know during my COVID stretch, I wasn't even sending them in.
You're a
Bull-
mess.
And the last 2 weeks, I haven't even been thinking about them. I've just been firing them off.
We're gonna meet sometime this week and figure out.
I was sending them in
clean.
even when I was on the West
Yeah.
Coast and I was getting texted 4 in the morning. I was on.
Yeah, Bull was on it. He's also
All right.
way ahead of
Here
everyone
we go.
else.
So
Damn, that
I want
sucks.
to do a shout out to the kids and families from my Little League team. We got together. Not all the families can make it, but a bunch of the families from my Little League team got together on Saturday. We played a family softball game at our Little League field. It was mostly adults versus mostly kids, and I went 2 for 3.
Oh.
I should have been 3 for 3, but I can't run, so
Who were you hitting off of? Kids?
the one adult on the other team.
Oh, okay.
But I got 2 line drive base hits, so I was happy about that. And most importantly, I didn't get hurt in the game.
There you go.
That's a win.
That was a win. So we had a lot of fun, and then we took all the kids for pizza. We went to my guy Danny over at Sweet Basil, and had a great time there. It was just, and if you can, the kids signed a baseball for me. I got cards from some of the families. It really touched me, and that I could be an influence on these kids. A couple parents said, hey, the kids had a great time, even though we finished in last place. but that they enjoyed your coaching and and it was such a positive experience. It meant so much to me, so I wanted to shout out to the families. Everybody, if you can, volunteer in your community. Do what you can to get kids playing sports and be a positive influence. Don't yell at the kids. They're 8, 9 years old. You don't need to yell at them. They're not going to the major leagues. And for you coaches that are telling kids not to play other sports, you're bums. You're terrible. Kids should play all sports. It should be about having fun. They're not making 99.99% of these kids are never going to play professional sports. So don't treat it that way.
I got fall ball practice tonight. Start another
Fall
fall ball.
That's real.
Start another
fall
season.
ball.
Starting. We had our first practice Saturday. All right, my final take is a continuation off last week. When I was on Thursday, I said I wanted to hear from Guardians fans and ex-Guardians fans, sort of to Jay's point. How much did the name change for the people who said, I never want to, I'll never support this team again? I wanted to hear from you. Have you changed your mind? And I had a smattering of responses on Twitter, and I did receive a few emails from people, and it was sort of 50-50. Some of them said, no, I meant it. I will never support this team again. And I heard from a few people who said, you know what, I was really bitter and angry at first, but I can't help it. This is a fun team to watch, and I'm back in. And I hope as time goes on, more and more people will adopt that view. It's just a name. And again, I say that as someone who didn't like it. I said that on Thursday. When the name change first came down, I didn't agree with it. And it took me quite a while to come around on it. It finally got to the point of like, listen, man, it's just a name. Does it really matter all that much? And to some people, the answer is yes. And the only thing I can say to you is hopefully as time goes on, you will soften that stance and come around because this is the best run team in town. It's not close. I've said that for years. The job Chris Antonetti does, Mike Chernoff does, Terry Francona does, the job these guys do on the field is remarkable. And I hope that as time goes on, if you are in that camp of I will never support this team again, you will ultimately soften that stance and come back around and support this team.
Yes.
Well said.
Well said.
I'm going to keep mine short and sweet, man. I just want to say, it was great getting back in the studio, man. Great getting back, everybody back, Jay back, Adam the Bull is back, we back in here, Jason is in. I think it's so great because, Jay just said something about, there's a lot of things that people can't talk about or discuss. And one of the things I like about this format is we all have varying degrees of what we believe politically, whether we believe in, even when it comes down to religion or economics or anything, right? We are all very diverse in our personal beliefs. But the one thing I can enjoy is that, we come in here and we talk about some very difficult things. We talk about some fun things. But the cool thing about it is nobody takes it to heart. Everybody comes and talks. We still are all cordial. We just hang out. And when the camera stops, people might ask, do these guys take it off camera? The answer is no. We come out and we do our thing. We laugh and joke and see what the numbers look like. And that's a really cool atmosphere to be a part of, no matter what you disagree about. It's always never any tension. And that's the coolest thing about this show. I'm glad to be back and everybody back ready for football season.
Yeah.
Cosign.
Agree.
Absolutely. Terrific. Bull, your final take got me to thinking about the other end of the spectrum. You do what you do for kids, and there's nothing more important than doing stuff for kids. But I had a conversation with my wife last week. My wife delivers meals to elderlies for Meals on Wheels. And she's been telling me for the last 2 years that she's more and more concerned about the people that she delivers meals to. Most of the people that she delivers to are widowed, elderly, and when I say alone, I mean they don't just live alone, they are alone. They either don't have family members in the area, or if they do, they're far too busy to check in them on a regular basis. My wife has told me that there's been this growing trend over the last year in particular. For every one of the meals that she delivers, they always say, can you come in and spend even 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes. I just want someone to talk to. You're the only person I have interaction with. And my wife feels terrible that in most cases she can only spend 5 or 10 minutes because she's on a schedule and she's delivering these meals. She's got a lot of them that she delivers. But it got me to thinking about the forgotten part of our society and our population, and that is the elderly. If you have a free 15-minute block in your schedule, and it's only once a week, maybe it's 3 times a week, try to do whatever you can to volunteer. There are organizations out there that you can reach out to that are that do just this. Link up people with free time, people that want to help make someone's life better. You can go and you can meet these people, become friends with them, have a weekly lunch session with these people. My wife says it's stunning how those 5 minutes in the living room having a brief conversation about, tell me about your granddaughter, tell me about your husband, tell me about your son and your daughter. They just want interaction. They miss that desperately. So if you can do that, you can find 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you can find. Try to do that. And if you have a loved one in your life that's elderly, that's alone, pick up the phone, call them, take them to lunch, spend time with them. I promise you, it will make you feel better about doing that than whoever it is you're actually helping. So if you can, give back.
Well
All right,
said.
that's it. Big Nuggets, you got one? You got anything?
DeQuell Jackson making his first ever Tuesday appearance tomorrow. He's
Oh,
on
is he?
vacation, so DeQuell will be on twice this week.
What
including
bougie
tomorrow.
vacation spot did he find this time?
I know the answer. Do you have any guesses? Any guesses real quick?
I'd say it's somewhere where
Yeah,
there's
Tahoe.
ice blue water. I'm saying the Caribbean.
Wrong.
Okay.
I'll let him tell you all tomorrow, but he's living,
right.
he's living life well right now.
I'm
DeQuell's
sure he
back,
is.
I know
possibly a Didi, and good shows. Good to have everyone back. And Jay's shirt wins the day, by the way. I'm not sure if Steve, can we zoom in on his
Quarterback
shirt?
purgatory.
Yeah. It's not just the shirt. So the letters in the shirt, inside the letters are the names of all of the quarterbacks.
Oh.
You gotta
No
update
Baker.
that.
I know I do need to update it. There's no Mayfield. There's no Dobbs. There's no Watson.
Right.
You know, I might run out of space on this
But
shirt.
it is a great shirt. Did you make
Yeah.
that yourself?
So a friend of my son-in-law trademarked this and started printing them a number of years
That's
ago.
good.
And he asked me if I would
yeah.
wear one on the air. And I'm like,
Nice.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, I will. Because, I mean, doesn't it kind of feel like we're still in quarterback
yes.
purgatory?
Until
We
Deshaun
got
Watson
our
plays.
guy, and we're still in quarterback
Yes.
purgatory.
Until he plays, it remains.
We're in purgatory. Yeah. Hey, also, put Earl on camera one more time. I want to introduce Earl to our audience. I know we
Earl the
mentioned
Pearl.
that this was his first day in studio. There he is. Is he close enough to the mic to give a quick shout out of who he is and where he's from and what he's about? Here we go, Earl.
You got 10 seconds, Earl.
All right, what's going on, man? Earl of Pearl. I am a producer full-time here at the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, producer at 92.3 The Fan, host at 92.3 The Fan.
Nice.
The whole nine, man. I'll be here for a while.
All right, Earl the Pearl, welcome, my friend. Earl the Pearl.
I
We're
have
out
a
of
third
time.
hand to raise the camera, hit the button, and hold the mic.
I saw that. You get the multitask award of the day. We're taking a 22-hour break. We'll be back tomorrow. Everybody enjoy the day. Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
I've got to urinate.